Hello and welcome back everyone, we Weeb Online, and today I'm gonna start a new series, What If Naruto Was Feared by the Shinobi Nation, Part 1. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
All right, children, please form two distinct groups. Boys, gather here, and girls, gather there, Mizuki instructed, glancing at his checklist. The class of children obediently lined up in front of their teacher just outside the border of the small sparring arena. Could you please take a step back? Thank you. Right there, the Chunin instructed, gesturing with his hands to indicate the desired position. Two lines of children, with boys in the first line and girls in the second, stood back to back. Mizuki possessed them. He cast a quick glance at his temporary partner, Koga, and flashed him a sly grin. They were excited about the prospect of enjoying themselves. All right, let's get started. Today's session will focus solely on Taijutsu, allowing us to assess your progress and skills in this area. The children acknowledged him, with the boys appearing enthusiastic to demonstrate their abilities and the girls appearing disinterested, as if they would prefer to be elsewhere. All right now, Sasuke Uchiha, being someone with combat experience, why don't you step forward and show us how it's done, your opponent? Mizuki paused, scanning the class as Sasuke confidently entered the ring, his eyes locking onto his intended target. Unbeknownst to anyone, Mizuki felt a secret sense of relief that Iruka was absent today. Naruto Uzumaki. A young boy suddenly sprang to his feet, clearly harboring some sort of grudge against the Uchiha boy. Without hesitation, he dashed towards the arena, ready to confront Sasuke, who remained unfazed, his expression one of indifference. Mizuki couldn't help but smile mischievously as he observed the scene unfold before him. The girls, who had initially shown little interest, were now completely captivated, eagerly perched on the edge of their seats. Meanwhile, Naruto prepared himself by stretching his muscles before assuming a determined stance. All right, just a quick reminder, no ninjutsu allowed, and Sasuke, this applies to you too. Let's keep it fair and avoid any fiery encounters with our opponents. The girls giggled mischievously, while the boys observed with entertained expressions, fully aware of what was about to unfold. This is excessive, Shikamaru pondered. I thought Kiba would be a better choice to go up against Sasuke instead of the class clown Naruto. I can't bear to watch. Choji enthusiastically nodded as he devoured his chips with gusto. He was determined not to miss a single detail. Mizuki positioned himself in the middle and confidently raised his hand. Are you prepared? The boys nodded, and Mizuki couldn't help but smirk. Once upon a time, in a land far away, a story unfolded. Naruto charged towards Sasuke, launching a flurry of punches. Sasuke skillfully evaded a right hook, blocked a jab to the side, caught Naruto's elbow, and swiftly delivered an uppercut to his chin, sending Naruto flying backwards and landing on his back. Go, Sasuke! The crowd cheered, their voices filled with excitement and anticipation. The atmosphere was electric as Sasuke stepped onto the field, his determination evident in his eyes. With each step he took, the weight of his past battles and training seemed to fuel his every move. The air yay, exclaimed Ino, as Sakura and the other girls chimed in with their agreement. Basically, we're all part of Sasuke's fan club, they said with a smile. The rest of the children erupted in cheers, their voices filling the air with excitement. Meanwhile, Kiba couldn't resist the opportunity to taunt Naruto from a distance. In a flash, Naruto sprang to his feet, his face contorted with a mix of frustration and determination. Is that all you've got? He challenged, his voice laced with defiance. Yelled Naruto in retaliation, he exclaimed, because if so, then I feel so. Just as Naruto was about to speak, he suddenly found himself on his back in the blink of an eye. Sasuke's knee was firmly planted on his chest, a clenched fist hovering dangerously close to his face. The Uchiha wore a smug expression, clearly relishing his advantage. I have more important matters to attend to than wasting my time with someone who consistently finishes last. Sasuke rose to his feet and gracefully exited the scene, leaving Mizuki to declare him the victor. Naruto found himself sprawled on the ground, completely taken aback by what he had just witnessed. It seemed to happen with such ease. Surprisingly, he found himself moving at a faster pace than he had anticipated. Naruto glanced towards the enthusiastic fangirls and the boys offering their congratulations to Sasuke. Meanwhile, Sasuke remained indifferent, choosing to rejoin the line with his arms folded. Koga let out a weary sigh as he helped Naruto to his feet, gently patting his back. "Come on, kid, get back in line. You're doing just fine." Naruto's face turned red with embarrassment and anger as he made his way back to the line, while the other kids continued to mockingly comment on how short the match had been. Well, Uzumaki, it seems your tough guy talk didn't quite match up to your performance," Kiba chuckled, clearly amused. Naruto winced. "Just be quiet, I had merely been taking it easy on him," he said, which caused even more laughter from some. "Yeah, absolutely. Whatever makes you feel better dead last," joked a random student. Naruto's fists tightened as he contemplated skipping class and seeking refuge. His once pristine reputation had been sullied by a single defeat at the hands of Sasuke. But Naruto was determined that the next encounter would yield a different outcome. He made a solemn vow to himself. There was a pause in the conversation. As Naruto made his way home, he sulked, barely acknowledging the other children who excitedly shared stories of their day. His gaze shifted towards Sakura, who stood just a short distance away from the gates. A wave of discomfort washed over him as he overheard her recounting the details of Sasuke's victory over him in their recent spar to her mother. Deep down, he held a special affection for Sakura, but it was painfully clear that she did not reciprocate those feelings. In fact, she took every opportunity to make it abundantly clear that she had no interest in him whatsoever. Today's incident had effectively shattered any hopes he had of impressing her. He calmly exited the area, skillfully avoiding the bustling crowd of parents gathering their children. Following the orders of the third Hokage, his designated guardian, he proceeded towards the towering Hokage building. As he arrived at the tower, he delicately rose onto his tiptoes and gently pressed the bell on the desk. "Excuse me, I have come to see the Hokage," he said in a soft tone. The woman's attention was drawn away from her papers as she scanned her surroundings, searching for the source of the voice. After a moment, her gaze fell upon a disheveled mop of blonde hair. "Ah, greetings, Naruto-san," she greeted with a calm and composed demeanor. The disheveled blonde looked up, his face bearing the marks of a recent altercation. "Hello, ma'am," he greeted. "May I have an audience with Hokage Jiji?" Once upon a time, in a land far away, there lived a young girl named Emily. She had a heart full of dreams and a mind filled with curiosity. Emily loved to explore the world around her and discover new adventures. One sunny day as she was walking, after briefly sifting through her papers, she reached for her cabinet drawer and passed it to the boy. "Please wait near the lobby door," she instructed. He finds himself caught in an impromptu gathering with a group of individuals. He gave a nod, feeling a sense of relief that Yui was the one at the desk today instead of... There was another woman. He made his way to the back where the waiting area was, hopping along with a sense of purpose. Seated comfortably, he delved into the pages of the different books, experiencing a range of emotions. Some caused his cheeks to flush with embarrassment, while others made him feel intellectually superior. And then there were those that left him feeling rather inadequate. The door to the Hokage's office swung open, and Naruto swiftly shut his book, his gaze fixed on the adults making their way out. It was clear that they hailed from a highly esteemed lineage. Leaving the office were Hayashi Hyuga and Fugaku Uchiha, who had arrived to resolve a dispute between their respective clan members in Hyuga's merchant district. It appears that Fugaku was on the losing end of the argument. Naruto ascended the stairs, having just traversed the hallway, and was led into the Hokage's office. Inside, Hiruzen appeared to be preparing for their session, hinting at an upcoming surprise. "Ah, you've arrived ahead of schedule. Excellent. This simplifies matters. You'll find some refreshments over there, Naruto." Once my meeting with a few clients concludes, I'll be eager to hear about your day." Naruto gave a solemn nod before finding a place to sit. After patiently waiting for an hour, the old man finally turned his focus towards him. Once the important clients had departed, Hiruzen motioned for Naruto to come forward. The young boy proceeded to pour his heart out, recounting every detail from Mizuki's deliberate targeting of him during taijutsu practice to the hurtful taunts and laughter from his fellow students, and even Sakura's rejection of his company. Hiruzen could only hear Naruto's complaints echoing in his ears. Naruto was going on about losing a spar, how it was tarnishing his reputation as a tough guy, and how his crush didn't feel the same way about him. It was all just typical academy drama. Hiruzen chuckled at the triviality of it all and responded, "Sounds like you've had quite the eventful day. I'm certain that Mizuki selected you because he believed you were more deserving than Kiba to confront Uchiha Sasuke." He pondered silently, wondering if there was another motive behind his actions. Perhaps he was seeking to win the favor of the clan. It's too early to dismiss the possibility of the day turning out to be terrible. "Here," he said. Hiruzen reached into his pocket and handed Naruto a set of keys. The boy's eyes widened with excitement as he jumped for joy. "Yada!" exclaimed the person with excitement. "True to your word, you fulfilled your promise," yelled Naruto, he exclaimed, snatching the keys out of the old man's hands. With a rather sloppy cartwheel, he celebrated his victory. Hiruzen, the old man, quickly stood from his chair, anticipating a collision with his desk. However, he raised his hands in a gesture of reassurance, indicating that Naruto was unharmed. "All right, Naruto, it's time to take a breather. Just relax now." Once upon a time, in a land far away, there lived a young girl named Emily. She had a heart full of dreams and a mind bursting with imagination. Every night, before she went to sleep, Emily would create stories in her mind, weaving together characters. Naruto, however, disregarded any hesitation and joyfully jumped into the old man's arms, expressing his gratitude with heartfelt words. Thank you. This is incredibly helpful. Farewell to the wretched, confining orphanage. Once upon a time, in a land far away, there lived a young girl named Emily. She had a heart full of dreams and a mind full of imagination. Every night, before she went to sleep, she would create stories in her mind and let her imagination run. Hiruzen gently patted the boy's head, letting out a heavy sigh. As he glanced downwards, a wave of sadness washed over him. His hair has once again reached an unruly length, signaling the need for another haircut. In a fleeting moment, I caught a glimpse of his father. He gently set the boy on the ground and rose from his chair. "Allow me to guide you to your new living quarters, all right?" Once upon a time, in a land far away, there was a tale that unfolded. It was a story filled with adventure, mystery, and unexpected twists. The characters embarked on a journey that would test their courage and resilience. As the plot thickened, the suspense. Naruto eagerly nodded, and Hiruzen could sense that in the future he would have to refrain from including candy when he brought snacks to the office. As they exited the building, Hiruzen followed along with the two. Naruto had the opportunity to venture further into the village, as he had not yet explored this particular area. It was conveniently located near both the bustling market and the thriving commercial district. Hiruzen made the decision to place him in the outer layer of the residential district, considering it a safer and more affordable option for him to handle the necessary utilities. With the academy now closer, he realized that it was the ideal location for Naruto. Yet, a worrisome problem loomed large: debt. Let me tell you a story. There was a choice to be made. Either provide Naruto with a less desirable location, free of charge, but with the potential for various issues such as rent, troublesome neighbors, and health concerns due to subpar construction. Alternatively, there was the option to invest in a higher quality house, ensuring Naruto's safety and well-being with amenities like heating, hot water, and a generally secure environment. He was determined not to disappoint Minato by abandoning the boy. He made a clear choice, even though it meant his clan would be displeased with this unnecessary expense. They complained about wasting clan money on an outsider, and accused him of showing favoritism towards the village weapon. His jaw tightened in response to the final remark. Amidst the conflicting opinions of the entire clan, he found himself in a position where he had to seek a middle ground. Can you please explain how this was accomplished? There was a promise that Naruto would repay them when the time came. Naturally, they were skeptical and assumed that the boy would owe their clan for the modest property. Unbeknownst to them, a significant portion of Minato's wealth, which had not been taken by the village, remained unclaimed. This included numerous properties scattered throughout the village, along with various physical assets left behind. Naruto is doing quite well. Little does he realize, not quite there. As they entered the lobby of the building, he guided the boy on how to navigate. The woman behind the desk was taken aback, her eyes widening in surprise as she locked gazes with Hiruzen. She steadied herself, offering a respectful bow to the man. "Hokage-sama, might I inquire if you are here to inspect your property?" Hiruzen's head shook in disbelief. "No, I'm here to show young Naruto his new living arrangements. I will be taking on the role of his landlord." The woman cast a quick, startled glance at the boy before recognition dawned on her, causing a flicker of unease to cross her face. However, in the presence of the Hokage, she refrained from expressing her worries and instead acquiesced with a hesitant nod. "Very well," she stammered. "Do you need any help?" Hiruzen's head shook in disbelief. "Absolutely none." As she observed, she gave a nod, her gaze fixed on the two figures ascending the stairs. A sense of disbelief washed over her, pondering the unexpected turn of events. Meanwhile, Naruto couldn't contain his awe as he took in his surroundings. Hiruzen trailed closely behind, ensuring that the young boy's enthusiasm didn't cause any accidental collisions with other residents. It was clear that Naruto was brimming with excitement and anticipation as he prepared to settle into his new home. Hiruzen couldn't help but smile at the sight before him, a mix of emotions swirling within him. A sense of guilt and a strong paternal instinct compelled him to take care of the young boy. Deep down, he wished he could do even more for him. After a long journey, they finally reached the correct floor. Naruto's face lit up with a wide smile as he laid eyes on his new humble abode. It may not have been extravagant, but it was a comforting sight. Imagine a cozy living room with a lovely terrace, a well-equipped kitchen complete with a convenient laundry section, a modern bathroom, a comfortable bedroom, and an additional room that offers endless possibilities for personalization. The terrace was cast in a dim glow as the sun had already set. In the search for a light switch, Naruto hurriedly entered the room, feeling his way around. After a moment, he found the switch and flicked it on. The sudden flood of light filled the space, revealing a home that was remarkably different from what he was used to. It was clean and well-maintained, a stark contrast to his old room at the orphanage. A faint scent of citrus lingered in the air, barely noticeable but adding a touch of freshness. The room was fully furnished, complete with everything one could need. Before Hiruzen could even speak, the boy darted through his apartment, eagerly exploring every room. Hiruzen listened as the boy excitedly exclaimed, "I have my own room now. This is absolutely incredible. The water in the bathroom is actually functional." The scorching heat was unbearable. A look of displeasure crossed his face in response to the remark. "Never again will I let the council have a say in the boy's living arrangements." Was the hot water not functioning where he was? Once upon a time, in a land far away, there was a captivating tale waiting to be told. It was a story filled with adventure, mystery, and a touch of magic. The characters were vividly drawn, each with their own unique personalities and motivations. As Hiruzen approached Naruto to address the comment, but the young boy dismissed it casually. He explained that it was an issue with the building and mentioned that efforts were being made to resolve it during the week he decided to run away. Hiruzen felt a sense of relief, although he remained dissatisfied with the arrangements made for Naruto. He was determined to put an end to Minato's haunting once and for all. "Please familiarize yourself with the surroundings and make an effort to relax. I will return to provide guidance on maintaining your well-being and managing the premises. Is that agreeable to you?" The blonde nodded in agreement as Hiruzen bid him farewell and handed over the key to the apartment. It turned out to be a surprisingly good day, and Naruto's perception of Hiruzen underwent a dramatic transformation. A new line is formed. Hiruzen sank into his office chair, feeling the weight of exhaustion settle upon him. The task of ensuring Naruto's safety had caused him to fall behind on his work, leaving him with a mountain of tasks to conquer. With determination, he pressed on, determined to complete his duties and finally return home. As he glanced at his assistant's new pile, a sigh escaped him. He wearily rubbed his eyes and set aside his completed work from earlier, knowing that a long night lay ahead. After a solid 2 hours of dedication, he managed to complete his work, albeit with a slight tendency to breeze through anything that didn't involve ninja activity. Hiruzen sank back into his seat, a wave of relief washing over him as he completed his tasks for the night. He stretched his limbs, feeling the tension release from his weary body. "That right there is the reason why I am not suited for the role of Hokage," a voice exclaimed from behind him. Hiruzen was taken aback, startled by the unexpected voice that belonged to his sole remaining and faithful student, Jiraiya. The elderly gentleman shifted in his chair, fixing a stern gaze upon the toad sage who had managed to approach him unnoticed. "Someday, you'll startle me to no end with your silent entrances into rooms. Doors serve a purpose." Jiraiya took a seat across from the Hokage, who fixed him with a penetrating gaze. "You appear quite worn out, sir," he remarked. "What's happening?" A weary sigh escaped the old man's lips as he reached into his pocket and retrieved a cigar. With a flick of his lighter, the flame danced to life, illuminating his weathered face as he exhaled a cloud of smoke into the air. "Just like any other day, my routine was disrupted when I had to spend extra time with my little guardian." Jiraiya's face contorted into a deep frown. "Naruto," he said with a hint of concern in his voice. The elderly gentleman gave a solemn nod. "Jiraiya, you should see him. The resemblance is striking. I'll have to trim his hair soon, as it's becoming quite long. If it continues to grow, it will bear a striking resemblance to Minato's." Jiraiya nodded and placed a document on the old man's desk. This was the reason for his presence, to deliver classified information intended for Hiruzen's eyes only. He had chosen to personally deliver it, as he couldn't rely on a messenger. However, the Hokage paid no attention to the document, instead fixating on Minato's portrait. "Jiraiya, it seems like the same excuse is always given. You have a spy network to manage. I understand, but I'm not unintelligent. You have never bothered to introduce yourself to the young boy." Jiraiya attempted to speak, only to be interrupted by Hiruzen, who raised his hand to signal for silence. "Allow me to conclude. The young lad. His potential is simply palpable. He is none other than his own flesh and blood." "Jiraiya, his son," exclaimed the elderly gentleman, his vexation over losing the most formidable Hokage since the inception of the village beginning to take its toll. An elderly gentleman inhaled deeply. "You're not obligated to stay. I'm not making that request. However, he is alone. Every day, I receive complaints about the excessive favor I show towards the boy, and people are beginning to speculate about the reasons behind it. It's impossible for me to provide for him and maintain my position as Hokage at the same time. It's just not feasible. I require assistance. A small amount of help is all I'm seeking from you. That's all." Hiruzen glanced at him with a disapproving expression, one that Jiraiya had always found unsettling. "You are his godfather." Jiraiya's fist tightened and he rose to speak, only for his words to wither away as their weight settled in his throat. After nearly 8 long years, he still finds himself unable to meet the boy's gaze and utter a single word to him. The initial encounter between them was quite chaotic. After spending several years in Konoha, he tried to keep himself occupied to cope with the pain of losing someone he cherished like a son. Determined to rebuild the connection he once had with the boy, who was merely 3 years old back then, he found himself paralyzed with fear, unable to make a move. Every time he laid eyes on Minato, it was like a cruel reminder of their striking resemblance. The fact that others seemed oblivious to it only intensified his agony. The last time he had laid eyes on Minato, he was full of life and vitality. Time seemed to have stood still for him, as if he hadn't aged a day past 22. He should have been by Minato's side, offering support and companionship. However, he found himself elsewhere, consumed by the relentless pursuit of a treacherous serpent. With a heavy heart, he turned away from the office, ready to seek solace at his beloved pub. The weary man let out a heavy sigh as he gazed upon the scene before him. With a sense of resignation, he reached down and retrieved the document, preparing himself for the task of delving into its contents. As he perused the words on the page, he couldn't help but feel a twinge of disappointment. It seemed that this new information would require him to remain in his office for a longer period than he had hoped. Nevertheless, he knew that it was necessary, and it only served to reinforce the need for a council meeting on the following day. There was a pause in the conversation. After 3 long years had passed, the academy. As the sun began to rise, a voice pierced through the stillness of the morning. It was a familiar voice, filled with urgency and excitement. "Wake up, Naruto," it called out, jolting the young ninja from his slumber. Shouted Iruka, causing Naruto to leap up from his seat. Here, the entire class erupted in laughter at the expense of the blonde student, prompting Iruka to simply shake his head in disappointment and mark the boy as present on his attendance sheet. Naruto let out a tired yawn and lazily stretched in his seat. He assumed his usual bored posture, propping his head up with his hand, just like Shikamaru. Iruka started his lecture, and Naruto settled in for what he expected to be a dull session. His eyes shifted towards Sakura, diligently jotting down notes, and then turned to his neighbor Sasuke, who maintained his usual brooding demeanor, fixated on the view outside the window. His anger towards him had subsided. Over time, the Uchiha had grown less arrogant, and Naruto had come to understand that Sasuke wasn't inherently bad, just accustomed to having things go his way. Furthermore, he tragically lost his entire clan a few years ago. Despite consistently outperforming him in every activity, it infuriated him to the point of frustration. However, beneath the surface, he secretly longed to establish a friendship with the boy. Unfortunately, his stubborn pride prevented him from taking the initiative. As he shifted his gaze, he noticed Kiba by his side, with Akamaru perched on his head. The duo appeared to be fully engrossed in Iruka's words, or at least putting up a convincing act. Another mundane day unfolded. Once more, Naruto found himself dozing off in class, only to be rudely awakened by a sharp slap on the back of his head. The sound of laughter filled the room as his classmates found amusement in his perpetual drowsiness. With a nervous laugh, he slouched as Iruka signaled him to come to his office for detention. It was no surprise that the entire class burst into laughter once again. Reluctantly, he mustered a half-hearted response, "Yes, sir." The class carried on throughout the remainder of the day until they were finally dismissed. On that particular day, the boys decided to take a break from their taijutsu training and instead focused on honing their chakra through various exercises. They knew that tomorrow they would be attending a weapons class, so they wanted to make the most of their time and energy. Reluctantly, Naruto trudges towards Iruka's office, knowing that yet another lecture about the significance of paying attention awaits him. As he walked past his classmates, the sound of giggles caught his attention. With a stern glare, he hoped to intimidate them into silence. However, all he received in response were more giggles. Frustrated, he let out an exasperated sigh and forcefully entered Iruka's office. It appeared that Iruka had just dismissed someone. From the appearance, it seemed to be a parent, along with the cautious stare directed towards him. As he sat in the chair, Iruka diligently graded assignments from a different class. Clearly, he was aware that it would be unwise to assess his own class's work in Naruto's presence. Once upon a time, in a land far away, a tale unfolded that would never be forgotten. Naruto suddenly became aware of Iruka's silence as 2 minutes passed without a word spoken. After just 10 minutes, a sense of unease began to creep over him. But when 20 minutes had passed, he could no longer contain his restlessness. "Can't you just scold me already and get it over with?" Iruka nonchalantly shrugged. "What's the point? There seems to be a sense of frustration in the air as the speaker questions the need to reiterate their point to Naruto, who has seemingly failed to grasp it despite multiple attempts. Why? Naruto's expression turned sour as he noticed the casual manner in which Iruka spoke, prompting him to carry on. There is a well-known saying that goes, "You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink." It's a sentiment that rings true in many situations. I've tried to emphasize to you time and time again the importance of paying attention and actively participating if you want to become Hokage, if you want to excel as a shinobi. However, it seems that my words have fallen on deaf ears. Instead of taking my lessons seriously, you choose to sleep through class, make jokes, and behave poorly, putting your entire academic future at risk. I can't help but wonder why you keep coming back if you have no desire to learn and refuse to put in any effort to earn your grades. Naruto attempted to speak, only to be abruptly interrupted by Iruka. "Ah, but I already know. It must be your ultimate goal, isn't it?" Naruto rose to his feet. "Exactly, and I definitely will." Iruka shook his head in disbelief. "Naruto, let it go. I understand your true motives behind this relentless pursuit, and it's not solely about becoming Hokage. It's about seeking attention." Naruto's expression shifted from anger to a mixture of offense and disbelief. "That's completely false," he retorted. Iruka handed the blonde his most recent exam, and he carefully examined it. 36%. "Is that so? Well, Naruto, your actions certainly speak volumes. I'm curious to know why you would bother attending class without even making an effort, especially considering that the Hokage is the one providing the funding for this endeavor." Naruto averted his gaze, clearly distressed. I often find myself feeling inadequate compared to others. It requires a little more time for me to grasp." Iruka acknowledged that with a nod. "That's what studying is for, Naruto. So, have you completed your homework from yesterday?" The blonde's gaze fell to his feet, his face flushed with embarrassment. "You're referring to the homework on chakra exercises and natures?" he stammered. Iruka agreed with a nod, while the blonde expressed disagreement by shaking his head. That's quite intriguing. I find myself at a loss for words, Naruto. Truly I am. Consider this my final lecture to you. The upcoming exam holds great significance, for if you do not succeed, your only path to graduation will be through the genin exam. As the saying goes, you can guide a horse to water, but you cannot compel it to drink. Naruto let out a heavy sigh and sank into his chair, a sense of dejection washing over him. The truth was, he lacked the true drive to become Hokage. Deep down, all he really craved was attention. Not just any attention, though. He yearned for the kind of attention that came from excelling, the disapproving glares and hushed whispers of parents. What was the Hokage thinking allowing that individual into the academy? Some would question. It's simply a misuse of resources, others would argue. What if they ascend in the ranks and seize control of the village? That final remark was the turning point for him. It shattered his determination, knowing that they would never grant him the title of Hokage. Nevertheless, it made him ponder the reason behind their animosity towards him. While the other orphans were overlooked, this situation seemed to be on a whole different level. After spending several more hours idling away in Iruka's office, Naruto was finally granted permission to head home. With the weekend ahead of him, Naruto's sole focus was preparing for bed and relishing in the prospect of a weekend filled with utter relaxation. Ascending the apartment stairs, he navigated past fellow residents, finally reaching the 5th floor. With a swift turn of the key, he gained entry to his abode. He gradually adapted to his present way of life, and it has now become familiar to him. He appreciates residing in this pleasant location, especially considering his circumstances. I pondered whether I had remembered to save some ramen for myself. After removing his shoes and securing the door, he proceeded to the bathroom. There, he refreshed his face before making his way to the refrigerator. To his dismay, he discovered that it contained nothing but leftover ramen and takeout rice from the previous day. What? What on earth? Where has all my food gone? I disposed of it. There were spoiled milk and cheese inside. Naruto spun around, startled by the sound of the voice. His eyes widened as he saw Jiraiya standing in the doorway, a bag of groceries in his hands. "Well, hello there," Jiraiya greeted with a smile. As I began to introduce myself, something unexpected happened, a sudden interruption that caught me off guard. Jiraiya found himself swiftly evading a barrage of kunai, taken aback by the impressive precision of the young assailant. The child maintained a safe distance while continuously hurling shurikens and kunai towards the elderly man. Remarkably, the old man effortlessly intercepted each projectile, with the exception of the lone one that now remained lodged in the wall. As Naruto found himself without any shuriken left to throw, the room fell silent except for the distinct sound of liquid spilling onto the floor. Jiraiya glanced downward and noticed that one of the shurikens had pierced through the milk carton. A mischievous grin spread across his face. "You accidentally spilled your milk. What on earth are you doing in my apartment, you elderly person?" Jiraiya's face contorted into a deep frown. "Take a breath. My apologies for interrupting. I was under the impression that you were supposed to finish at 3, but it seems you are 3 hours behind schedule." Naruto snarled, maintaining a cautious distance as Jiraiya placed the groceries on the counter. "I was stuck in detention. Now, reveal your identity or face the wrath of the Hokage," he threatened. The Toad Sage raised his hands in surrender and gestured towards his headband. "I am Jiraiya, one of the 3 legendary Sannin and a master of sealing jutsu. I also happen to be your godfather." Naruto inched forward, observing the striking resemblance between himself and the figure in the portrait adorning the Hokage's desk. It was none other than the old man's genin team, captured for eternity in the painting. "Oh my goodness, you are the teacher of the 4th Hokage. Impossible. Why? Is it the godfather you're referring to?" Naruto's excitement came to a sudden stop when he heard that word, and Jiraiya simply gave a nod in response. "Indeed, it is true. I have returned after a prolonged absence, and now I am here. Would you be willing to join your godfather for dinner this evening? I have much to share and clarify." Naruto stood frozen, his voice trembling as he whispered, "Godfather, Godfather." He paused, his breath catching in his throat. "So, that implies you're considered part of the family?" Jiraiya couldn't help but flinch at that. If they were family, then he would be considered the least competent in his role. "Sure, in a way. Please take a seat now." Naruto anxiously paced back and forth, his hands tightly clutching his hair. The weight of the situation was immense, overwhelming him. The newfound presence of a godfather held immense significance for him, finally having someone in his corner. However, doubt crept into his mind. Could this man be deceiving him? His appearance was unlike anyone Naruto had ever encountered before. Countless questions swirled in his head, leaving him at a loss for words. Where had this man been all this time? Who were his? Naruto spun around, fixing his gaze on him. "If you claim to be my godfather, it can only mean that my parents must have chosen you for this role, correct?" Jiraiya's face drained of color at that moment. "Oh no. Could you kindly enlighten me about their identities? Pretty please?" Jiraiya raised his hands in a calming gesture. "Now, let's take things one step at a time," he said. "There is something that has haunted me ever since I could speak. It is a single thing that has consumed my thoughts." Jiraiya agreed, stating that he would provide a thorough explanation. However, he suggested that it would be more enjoyable to discuss the matter over a meal. Naruto frowned and gave a curt nod. "All right, but be warned, any funny business and there will be consequences." As they sat down for their meal, Naruto eagerly devoured his chicken teriyaki, his appetite seemingly insatiable. On the other hand, Jiraiya savored each bite, taking his time to enjoy the flavors. He couldn't help but cringe at Naruto's eating habits. It was understandable though, given that he had grown up without any guidance. Teaching him proper table manners would be a priority moving forward. The boy was taken by surprise when Jiraiya presented him with a mouth-watering dish. Despite his initial preference for ramen, it appeared that he might have to expand his culinary preferences. The idea of combining teriyaki with ramen certainly sounded enticing. With a determined effort, he composed himself and took a more measured approach to his meal. He delicately wiped his mouth and discreetly cleared his throat. "All right, to begin with, you assert that you are my godfather, yet you have been entirely absent for 11. Well, if we want to get technical, it was a solid decade of my life. Why?" Jiraiya knew that addressing this question was crucial and needed to be done right away. After much introspection, he sensed that this was the pivotal moment in his life. "I was not present in the village when you came into this world, nor was I there during the devastating Ninetales attack. Instead, I found myself embarking on a relentless pursuit of a treacherous individual." The man let out a weary sigh, his fingers gently grazing his flowing locks. "I oversee a vast spy network that spans the elemental nations, intricately woven like a delicate web. It demands my constant attention, leaving no room for a moment's respite. Back then, it was beyond my capabilities. Fortunately, I have come across reliable sleeper nin and overseers who will greatly assist me in this task. However, this occurred 6 years in the past." Jiraiya locked eyes with Naruto. "I want to be honest with you. I regret not being able to take care of you, no matter how hard I tried. However, I should have made an effort to visit and let you know that you weren't alone, and that there was someone who could have been there for you, a connection to your loved ones. I deeply apologize, Naruto. I am truly sorry. I was grieving the loss of your parents, and seeing how much you resemble them only served as a painful reminder of how I failed to be there when you needed me the most. It's a mistake that I will always regret, along with not being there for you when—" Jiraiya cleared his throat, causing Naruto to become emotional. Tears streamed down his face as he fought back sobs, his body trembling with a mixture of grief and a long-held feeling he had harbored since childhood, hatred. However, with the revelation of this man's connection to his family, Naruto found himself torn between the desire to embrace the only semblance of family he had and his overwhelming anger. Just as Jiraiya opened his mouth, Naruto abruptly rose from his seat and delivered a powerful slap that sent the man tumbling to the floor. Clutching his reddened cheek, Jiraiya watched in stunned silence as Naruto stormed off to his room, forcefully shutting the door behind him. Jiraiya let out a weary sigh, mustered his strength, and carried the empty dishes to the sink, where he diligently began washing them. He let out a heavy sigh, filled with regret. "I had brought this upon myself, a result of my own foolishness. Instead of hiding my mistakes, I should have mustered the courage to admit my faults and plead for his forgiveness. Alas, I have paid the price for my procrastination. I can only hope that tomorrow he will grant me the opportunity to engage in conversation. Time is running out for me in this place, and I long for a chance to make amends before I must depart once more." There was in the grand office of the Hokage. Meanwhile, the Hokage had just received the report from Iruka regarding Naruto's recent behavior. Hiruzen let out a weary sigh and rubbed his temples as he quickly scanned through the contents of the report. He has been described as lazy and lacking motivation, with an attitude that hinders his participation in physical activities. His behavior is seen as a distraction to the class, and it is noted that he struggles to concentrate for more than a second. Every step of the way, this child seemed to encounter one obstacle after another. The frustration was palpable, and there was a strong urge to reprimand the young boy. However, it became apparent that the message wasn't sinking in. It wasn't entirely his fault, considering all the hardships he had endured. Nevertheless, it was crucial for him to grasp the fact that sacrifices had been made to bring him this close. Giving up at this stage was simply not an option. Suddenly, a gentle tap resonated through the room. There shouldn't be any visitors at this time, especially not during the night, as far as I am aware. Suddenly, a distinct knock echoed through the room, causing Hiruzen to snap to attention. "Please come in," he exclaimed eagerly. As Jiraiya entered the room, it was clear that he was in a state of emotional turmoil. "I did as you requested. I met with the child," Jiraiya said with a solemn tone. Hiruzen's head shook in disbelief. "Had you heeded my advice and waited for 2 years, the extent of the damage could have been significantly reduced." Jiraiya remained silent, his body slouched in the chair before Hiruzen. It appeared that, at the very least, he had neglected to inquire about his lineage. Hiruzen let out a weary sigh as he gently massaged his temple. I have a solution to that predicament. We'll address this matter tomorrow. I have an idea that will resolve his academic challenges, your need for discretion regarding his parentage, and a justification for maintaining your proximity to him. Jiraiya's interest was piqued. Oh? Hiruzen acknowledged with a nod, settling back in his chair. We utilize the information to our benefit. Employ it as a means to inspire him. You will comprehend once I address both of you tomorrow. Jiraiya found himself momentarily perplexed, but soon a spark of realization ignited within him. Ah, he exclaimed as he began to piece together his sensei's intentions. Ah, I understand. All right then, I entrust everything to you. Hiruzen gave a nod and motioned for Jiraiya to leave his office. Reluctantly, Jiraiya complied, though he paused briefly at the door. Ah, here's another thing. Be quick on your feet. Hiruzen's eyes widened as he caught what appeared to be a book in his hands. He couldn't help but notice that it looked like an early draft. Jiraiya gave a solemn nod. Ika Ika Violence, the successor to Ika Ika Paradise, is almost complete. There are a few finishing touches left, but I'll leave you to savor it. Hiruzen swiftly dismissed the man, simultaneously searching through his drawer. Please close the door and hang the Do Not Disturb sign. Please inform my assistant to leave any documents for tomorrow outside my door. Jiraiya let out a small laugh as he closed the door, playfully flipping the tag that warned others to stay out. He had a mischievous plan in mind, a little research to lift his spirits. Before proceeding, he made sure to inform the assistant about not disturbing his sensei. He also engaged in some playful banter, hoping to distract himself from the unsettling events that had taken place. Naruto's apartment, Konohagakure, and the Land of Fire. Once Jiraiya left, the blonde woke up the next day to be by himself, just like any other day. He got dressed, got up, and thought that Jiraiya's visit was just another bad dream. He limped to his bathroom, where he took a bath, brushed his teeth, changed into an orange shirt with a hidden leaf on it, and grabbed his school bag. But when he looked at his calendar and realized what he had to do, he stopped moving. It's Saturday, what am I doing? The blonde let out a sigh of relief and then decided he might as well go for a run in the village to see if there were any passing caravans strolling through Konoha since it was spring. To his surprise, they were the only ones willing to sell to him at a fair price. He went to get something to eat quickly, opened his fridge, and found new food frozen. It was real. The Toad Sage is my godfather, the boy said in a low voice. Even though he was happy, he remembered how that night ended. He slapped the man out of his chair and ran to his room to cry his eyes out. The man looked sad, even though he didn't mean to act that way. It was just a reaction that came out of nowhere. He looked down and felt his fist clench. No, he wasn't calming down. He shouldn't have been so polite. He should have slapped that jerk in the face for being so late to do his job. What kind of godfather shows up 10 years after the child was born and tries to claim a family connection? The man does know who he is, and who his parents are, though. The boy quickly put his hands over his ears and shook his head. This became a habit that helped him get rid of his unwanted thoughts. He's your godfather. That's all you've wanted since you found out you were an orphan. Uzumaki, what were you thinking to scare him away? Ugh. That was it. He shut the fridge and chose to sleep in instead. After all, extra rest couldn't hurt, right? When there was a knock on the door, Naruto slid down his wooden floor and ran to his door to look through the peephole. Who is that? He called out to try to get a good look at the person. From the other end, a voice said, "It's me. From today, Jer." Naruto swung the door open and tried very hard to look angry, but his eyes told the truth. He asked her in a calm voice, "What do you want?" Before putting up his hand with a breakfast bento in it, Jiraiya took a quick look at the boy. "A truce? I just want to talk." After taking a quick look at the bento, Naruto jumped up on the counter and grabbed it. Iraya almost said something rude, but Naruto seemed to be telling his mother that if the offering was taken, then a chance would be given. He's not going to mess this up. He shut the door and sat down next to the boy while Naruto opened the bento and was amazed at how well it was put together. Not long after taking the lid off, he peeled off the wrapping and dug in. There were deviled eggs, tomato slices, toast with brown sugar, and shaved oranges. It looked good. While the boy ate in silence, Jiraiya tried to think of a way to say sorry. It took him 3 minutes to decide that he didn't have time to think any longer and to just do it. Naruto, I said I was sorry the last time we met, but it wasn't a real apology. It was full of excuses that didn't make sense. Jiraiya went on, and Naruto just chewed. Naruto is, I'm truly sorry. I was and still am a selfish person, and you shouldn't forgive me. Never letting you know that someone cared about you while you were alone, who wanted you to be safe. I feel terrible about what I did because it was awful. I'm sorry I didn't show up, say hello, or send you anything, but I promise I will be better from now on. I'll be a better person for you and remember those who came before me. He looked at Jiraiya as he cleaned up and put the chopsticks back in the holder. It was like he was trying to figure out what to say. Okay, but you need to tell me who my parents are. You said you knew them, which interests me. You are the Toad Sage, the teacher of the 4th Hokage, and the student of the 3rd. It doesn't make sense for someone as great as you to want anything to do with me. Being aware that it was pretty scary, Jiraiya had a feeling that it would happen. I was ready for you to ask. We will sort of get an answer to that question, but Hiruzen has to be there. Naruto raised an eyebrow at that. Why? He stood up and stretched his back. Kid, you're more important than you think. Come with me. He blinked and looked down at his shirt, which was white before it got ketchup, egg yolk, and sugar on it. He said dryly, I need to change. Jiraiya agreed, adding, well, make sure it's a good shirt. He quickly went to his bedroom and put on his new, the same color as before, white long-sleeved shirt with the symbol of his village on the back. Naruto met Jiraiya outside his door. The door slid silently down the hallway. Naruto was filled with worry, but Jiraiya stayed calm. He had finally taken a step forward and told everyone what was going on. He could now move forward, but there was one more step he needed to take before he could call himself on the path to forgiveness: the Hokage Tower. As they walked into the building, people moved out of the way to make room for them. When they saw the legendary Sannin with a serious face, they took him seriously. He didn't like the attention and wanted to get to work as soon as possible, but he couldn't help but think about how he must look to the village with this guy walking him into the Hokage's office. The looks he got on the way here were strange, and some of them were even happy. He probably thought he got himself in trouble with Konoha's second strongest shinobi. Lord Hokage is busy right now, the front desk worker said, putting out her hand to stop them. When she saw that Jiraiya was looking very serious, she stopped and put her hand down to signal him to go ahead. After they walked a while, she looked twice and saw Naruto following behind. Jiraiya and Naruto got to the door to the Hokage's office and heard people talking inside. Jiraiya got angry when he saw who was on the other side. Homura, he said in a low voice, and Naruto was shocked by how angry he was. Who? Jiraiya sighed and pressed his nose bridge together. He's just an old man from the village, he said. It was a pain in the behind. Naruto nodded and tried to listen in, but it was hard to do so because of how the rooms were set up. What they were talking about could wait, Jiraiya decided. Naruto, go hide in that room tight over there. He looked at Naruto in a strange way. Why? The old man put out his hand to knock. These old goats are worse than the villagers, he said. You don't want them to know you're with me. Believe me. Naruto sighed and strode into the other room. Jiraiya knocked on the door, which stopped the voices in the room. After a short silence, he heard the Hokage yell for him to come in which he did. He didn't know what was going on in the other room after that. Just that, after a few minutes, an old man and woman walked out looking a little angry. Soon after, Jiraiya waved him into the room. Naruto didn't understand what had happened, but when he walked in, the old man smiled and waved him over. After giving the man a soft smile, Naruto walked in and shut the door behind him. He was nice and said, "Take a seat, young man." Naruto nodded and then sat down in a chair. "You've had a great morning, right?" He smiled and said, "I know," and Jiraiya sighed. Naruto gave them both a strange look and then his eyes got narrow. "Why you knew he was my godfather?" That was before Hiruzen could say anything. "Part of the reason I'm here is because of the old man. He opened my eyes and showed me how wrong it was to leave you." He looked at the man and said, "Well, okay, but..." Hiruzen spoke up and said, "Telling you wouldn't have been a good idea because Jiraiya wasn't there to reassure me of his change of heart. Knowing there was someone out there, but that person never showing up would have made me angry, which is a healthy emotion, but I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner." Naruto looked down and thought. This was by far the most difficult set of events he's ever had to deal with. He thought that managing an apartment, rationing food, and keeping a budget together while prices kept going up and down was enough for him every day. But this emotional roller coaster was something he wasn't ready for. He thought the next time he'd be here was to get in trouble for his behavior at the academy, not this. "Okay, fair enough," Naruto said in a slow, careful voice. "But from what I was told, you both know who my parents are. That's all I need a reason to live besides myself. I need to know why I'm here, why I exist. Were they hated or something?" Hiruzen quickly shook his head and said, No. They were the nicest people I've ever met. These were..." The old man paused and then said, "Naruto, I can't tell you everything." Naruto looked at him with interest. Hiruzen put up his hand to keep Naruto from putting anything in his mouth as he leaned in closer and glared. "Listen to me before you speak. Your parents had enemies, dangerous enemies. I will also tell you about your mother and her family history, but there is something you need to do before I can tell you who your father was." He stood up and asked, "What is this condition? Please tell me." When Hiruzen looked at Jiraiya, they both gave each other knowing looks. The Toad Sage nodded to show that he agreed with what Hiruzen was thinking. He spoke to the boy and waved him over. "Your father was a dangerous and powerful shinobi. If I told you who he was, you'd want to become like him, and I will never stop you from doing that. But you'll make enemies along the way, and I'm afraid you won't be strong enough to handle it, especially with how you're doing in the academy right now. That's why I need you to reach at least Chunin before I can tell you everything I know about him." Naruto's eyes got big when he heard that. "Become Chunin? Hush," he said to himself. The two men saw something new in his eyes that Hiruzen had never seen before. "So if I become a Chunin, you'll tell me who my dad is? What about my mom? And, hold on, I've been given money." Hiruzen gave a nod. "Yes, you can claim it when you either turn 18 or get strong enough to defend yourself. But you must meet this condition first in order for either of those things to happen." He was now excited. "Oh, okay, I'll do it. Tell me about my mother." Hiruzen laughed and put out his hands to make everyone feel better. "Of course, Naruto, take a seat." Hiruzen cleared his throat as the boy quickly sat down. "Your mom's name was Kushina Uzumaki, and she was also known in Konoha as the Red Hot Habanero, also known as the Scarlet Demon by our enemies." Naruto blinked and he couldn't believe what he saw. Wow, how did she come up with such a cool name? For those dark days, Hiruzen smiled and scratched his beard. She got her name during the Third World War. In order to protect her squad, she killed about 112 Chunin and a few Jonin. Before she died, the last thing people would see was her hair blowing in the wind as she ran in and out of battle, cutting and gutting her enemies and leaving a trail of blood behind her. Few people could match her skill with a sword. Naruto was scared and interested at the same time. She seems very strong. Yes, the Hiruzen is on par with the White Fang of Konoha and the Sannin in terms of how well it fights, he said. Because she became an S rank quickly, you haven't had a class on her yet. But you can read up on her before her classmates do if you want to. A lot of people know her. She was another reason to be afraid of her clan, Hiruzen said. Jiraiya knew that was what he meant. Naruto stood up again, his eyes wide. Sea clan, like the Uchiha clan and the Hyuga clan. Even though Hiruzen laughed and nodded, he then looked very serious. Yes, unfortunately, they were wiped out by a coalition of Shinobi villages when she was very young. It's because of them that she left her homeland. She hid in the land of fire because it was Uzushio's ally. Just from his mother's side, Naruto learned a lot. So she was a refugee at that time. Hiruzen agreed. She was a pretty wealthy refugee. Kaido Uzumaki was her father. Uzumaki is another person you should learn more about. People were after her because she and her cousins brought a lot of money to Konoha. She was in charge of a clan, but for a different power. Naruto's eyes got bigger. Counselors? She brought family. Hiruzen realized he was going too fast. They were old, so they died before you were born, he said. Naruto fell down at that. Oh, but that doesn't mean there aren't others waiting to be found, Hiruzen quickly reassured him. Her goal was to bring back her clan and those who had died back together in Konoha. She wanted to do that when she got strong enough to travel by herself, but the war stopped her. Then she got pregnant with you, and then the Ninetales attacked. It was never going to happen. That made Naruto's eyes change. The goal for my mom was to find more family. He leaned in and paid more attention than ever before of anything in his life. Tell me more, the kid asked in a whisper. Hiruzen gave a nod. Before I do though, I need you to keep quiet about this, okay? Her wealth is unclaimable and was to be liquidated, but she went through a lot of hoops and loops to prevent that. Understand? There are many merchant nobles, major clans, and minor clans that want a piece of that wealth, and not just here in Konoha, but throughout all of Fire Country. Hi, Naruto. Alright, I won't tell anyone. He told the boy everything he knew about his mother, which was a lot, but the boy never looked up or spoke up. He talked about things he didn't want to remember for a long time, but he did it because it was for Naruto. It was all for Naruto. The story was over, and Naruto was wiping away tears. The two older men also felt sad as they thought about what they remembered about the woman. To lift the mood, Jiraiya raised his voice. You look like her. You think and act the same way she does. Don't call yourself stupid because she wasn't that. She wasn't like other shinobi and was pretty scary, but she always kept her word. Like you, she cared a lot about her honor. Did I get that right? You have a lot to live up to. The older man didn't expect Naruto to hug him, but he did. He looked down at Naruto for a moment before hugging back and patting the boy on the head. Naruto said in a low voice, I'll make them proud. I'll make all of you proud. Then Hiruzen smiled and said, I don't doubt it. The young Uzumaki was looked at by Jiraiya and the old Hokage. Hiruzen sighed and said, I guess that leaves only one more thing. I want to give you pieces of the Uzumaki fortune, but I can't do it all at once. That would be impossible until you become Chunin, at which point it will be given to you in full. Naruto agreed and nodded, but Hiruzen said one more thing. It was important for Kushina to give up the heirlooms she was holding right away. One of them I can't give you because it's in the vault, but this one I can. He pulled out a small book and gave it to Naruto. I trust you will read this when you have time and take good care of it. Naruto opened the book and gasped when he saw what was inside. This is her diary. He turned his head away. It's something else. It's a list of clan information and her thoughts on them that are only for her to see. I'm giving this to you. And he held on to it like it was a valuable treasure until he and Jiraiya got back home. He then locked his door and looked at it to learn as much as he could about her and himself. It wouldn't surprise him if there were also entries about his father. Later that day, Jiraiya was telling Naruto exactly what was in the book, and the blonde was sitting on the couch, listening intently. Why? Because the book had a lot of fuinjutsu and kenjutsu skills and techniques that he didn't understand at all. His mother was clearly very smart, and she had written things down in a way that was easy to read and understand. It was so much easier to read and understand than what was being taught vague. Fuinjutsu and Kenjutsu were what the Uzumaki were good at, and they also passed on bloodlines. She must have been trying to keep her clan's history and traditions alive by writing this book. Naruto said yes, but then he thought of something. I don't know anything about either. Jiraiya said yes. That's okay. I know some Fuinjutsu and can teach you bits and pieces of it, but Kenjutsu isn't my thing. I know it, but I'm not as big and strong as she was. Naruto smiled and said, okay? Fijutsu, could you show it to me? The wise toad shook his head. Not today. It's too far along for you to handle. He stood up and said, oh, come on. I need to be as great as my mom for my dream to come true. Please teach me, please teach me. The old man turned his head away. I said no, and my answer is no. This is Uzumaki Fuinjutsu that I would need time to understand. Your clan was a grade above myself in terms of proficiency at this stuff, and it isn't my right to decipher this stuff until you become the clan head of the Uzumaki clan. That seemed like a scary thought. Who is in charge of the Uzumaki clan? It's a big deal for him, whether it's a foreign clan or not. Please, at the very least, teach me the basics. Jiraiya let out a sigh. That would work for him, and he'd let the boy take it from there. Fine. Not today, though. It will take me a while to make a textbook that fits your needs. Naruto got up from the couch and began running in place. Good job. We're getting there. He gave a nod and thought to himself. Now, Naruto, you need to keep up your ninja training too, do you understand? That made Naruto feel down, but he still nodded and said, sure, fine. That's something I can do. When he turned back to the book, his eyes got bigger. Oh my god, there's so much stuff in here that isn't clan related, like recipes for food, locations of various things. That made Jiraiya sit up. She probably wanted to find any lost items that have been found and have the Uzumaki Mon on them or are valuable to their clan. Before they started fighting, they were very rich and owned a lot of what we now call the Land of Fire. But this happened during the Shogun period. Naruto put the book down and gave a nod. The boy was trying to take in so much that he was getting a headache. There are so many things to think about. Let's go on a trip tomorrow, have lunch, and relax, Jiraiya said with a laugh. In any case, I can answer any questions you may have. Naruto said yes, and they read and talked for the rest of the night. It was the next day that he got to know his godfather better. One thing that stood out to him was what a pervert the man was. The man would stop in the middle of a deep conversation to drool and stare at a woman's butt or breasts, which irritated Naruto. He didn't know why he hadn't noticed this before, but he knew it was probably because he didn't want to make a bad impression on his godson. He did laugh at times, like when the man got into a fight with a waitress when Jiraiya took him out to dinner. It was a good day, even though the man kept looking at women when he thought he was being sneaky. But everything good has to end. Are you really leaving? How long though? Just this part scared Jiraiya the most. I can't stay for long periods of time because it would ruin the work I've done to trick people into thinking that your parents had a child. There are also a lot of other things to think about. I will promise to stay for a few days every month or two and write. Naruto slowly agreed and sighed. Okay, but don't let me find out that you're lying or giving me the creeps to go look at women. The old man said yes and smiled. Kid, I have too much to make up for. Naruto gave a small smile and a nod. Jiraiya walked away and Naruto waved him off. As he walked into his apartment, he held the book tightly in his hand and cried. He had been high on meeting the man and was now feeling down. I won't let you down. Mom. After a year, the Academy, Konohagakure, and the Land of Fire. Since it came out who his parents were, a lot has changed. At least his mom, and how he was linked to the Uzumaki family. Because of this, Naruto's growth as a shinobi went in a better direction. Still, it was an odd turn. Naruto was more interested in things that had to do with the Uzumaki clan, and he still had trouble at the academy, except for this one test. The art of Fuinjutsu. Naruto did very well on both the written and practical tests for this subject. Iruka didn't think of it as a challenge for his students to get a bad grade, but Naruto did. Naruto was much better than he should have been. It made the teachers think he was cheating, so they made him show them the same results but with different answers. It was clear from the results. Naruto knew as much about seals as a Chunin expert when he was only 11 years old. Iruka was shocked and interested. Besides that, Naruto did pretty poorly on practical tests such as taijutsu, shuriken throwing, and other physical tests. Still, he had terrible chakra control, and his written score was very low. But that's only because he failed an exam and dropped to the D class, which means that even though his current written tests are better than the ones he took before, they aren't enough to make up for his low score compared to others. He's tied for last place with a kid named Jin. He is still known as Dead Last. But he was going to change that today. That day, he will beat the Uchiha for good and never lose again. It had been over a year since he first did the katas he learned from that book. At first, his movements were a bit stiff and clumsy, but the more he read about how to move your body correctly when sword playing, the more he understood how beautiful and powerful the blade really was. Even though this is taijutsu, he's sure he can use some of it in his own fighting. He thought that, at least. Naruto was back on the ground. His chest was quickly rising and falling, his legs were burning with pain, and Kiba had hit him in the face, giving him a nasty bruise. He wasn't even able to get the opponent he wanted. Kiba said with a smug grin, "You're still getting the short end of the stick, huh, loser? You're not good at fighting, come on." He growled and tried hard to stand up, but he fell down again. "Shut up, Kiba. I licked you too." "Okay, you two back off," Mizuki told them as Iruka helped Naruto stand up. He told Naruto, "You did well," with a proud grin. Looking at the other kids who were praising Kiba for being the class clown again, Naruto frowned and said, "I dug myself a hole by acting out. Now no one expects anything from me and wants me to fail." Iruka sighed, but she changed the words, "Good." Before it's too late, you don't want them to know what great things you can do. Believe me. The only thing they acknowledged was that Kiba won the fight, but he had to work hard for it. Keep your head up. You're better now. And Naruto couldn't help but agree with what the man said. But he's sure it won't matter to his peers. He was the village jester, so they would always think of him that way. He went back to where the kids were and stood next to Shikamaru. Hikaru said, "You did fine this time." Naruto looked at him, but Shikamaru didn't pay attention. "I'm not being sarcastic," he said. "I see what's going on. It's clear that you're not the same class clown you were a year ago. What changed then?" Naruto put his hands together. "What's it to you?" "I don't want to answer, but I see you every day. You haven't been the same, and I know this for sure because I'm the only other guy here with any sense. You were more. What is explosive? I'm not sure, but it's clear that something has changed." Naruto was shocked by what Nara said. The laziest and least interested kid in their class, Shikamaru, was paying attention to him. A cool turn. "Iruka-sensei told me some great things about myself." "Yeah, you lie a lot. That's all I have to say about it. I'm not really interested." He sighed at his good luck. Okay, he has to agree with him. He's a smart guy. There should be someone else besides Shino that he can actually have a polite conversation with in the classroom. They call him the Bug Boy, and he's probably his best friend since they are both alone for different reasons. They get along well. Took it in stride and walked over to Shino to watch the rest of the matches. Sasuke was, of course, the MVP. As the girls cheered for the boy to beat up his opponent, he looked at them and rolled his eyes. Shino, on the other hand, did not agree. They are fools. They cheer on someone to beat another so harshly for no real reason. It's barbaric. Naruto laughed at Shino's direct assessment. Well, they all like the guy, so what can I say? Plus, from what I've seen, Sasuke never goes that far. Some kids went to get checked out and were given time to eat their lunch after the sparring matches were over. The other kids who weren't hurt went to get lunch. After lunch, they went right back to class to finish the day. When class was over, Naruto was the first one to leave the room and go outside for some fresh air. Naruto ran home to check his mail, ignoring the parents who were coming to get their kids. Jiraiya must have left him something to work with. It turned out that he wasn't let down, another scroll to learn from. Naruto smiled and took it apart. To his surprise, it wasn't Fuinjutsu, it was chakra used. Wha? Are you kidding me? I don't need this nonsense. Where are the glyphs? The language of our very simple lives? How come there is no Fuinjutsu? He looked through the papers and scrolls to see if there was anything about Fuinjutsu, but it looked like his godfather wasn't done playing with him. There was nothing to use. That's not funny. He had a short temper tantrum and then saw a note at the very end of the scroll. I know what you're thinking. How could you? Where are my seals? Why did you do this? Simple. You need to focus on the basics if you want to be able to control high-level Fuinjutsu and ninjutsu. There are things I want to teach you but can't because you're not good at the basics. You've gotten better, but I know you can do even better with the right motivation. To push you, I've set a goal. If you can finish the 3 exercises in it. I read it several times to make sure it meant what he thought it did. Ninjutsu is what a shinobi does, and he could already picture himself using ninjutsu to show Sasuke who's boss. The boy stood up and laughed like a schoolgirl before going to his desk to rearrange the notes in the scroll. He had a new goal, and this time he was excited about it. He was going to be so good that Sasuke would look stupid. He was going to show everyone they were wrong. He's going to be Hokage after all. He can do this after 3 weeks. Where Iruka lives. The man woke up when someone knocked on his door. He got up slowly to see who was wakening him up. It had been a long day at the academy. He was shocked to see Naruto there of all people. That's Naruto? Do you need anything? Naruto gave a nod. Could you help me control my chakra? She blinked and said, huh? It was hard for Iruka to keep quiet as Naruto walked in. I did the leaf concentration exercise and got to the point where I could do it without breaking focus. But now I don't know how to do tree climbing. That's ridiculous. He held out his hands and said, Hold on, Naruto. What's going on? Going up in trees? That's a move you learn as a genin. Naruto then began to frantically wave his hands around. Well, apparently, in order for someone with such large chakra reserves to get a better grasp of it, they need a more advanced exercise to control it, or so Lord Hokage told me. Please help me and buy the lie, I thought to myself, Naruto said. He was shocked by what he heard, but it made sense as he thought about it more. As for his own chakra reserves, they aren't very high, so he had no trouble controlling them. It's strange to see Naruto working so hard on his training though. If that's the case, give me a minute to get ready and I'll take you to training ground 4. That was it. Naruto sped out the door while Iruka went into his room to put on some ninja gear. Lord Hokage, Iruka asked herself. That's strange. Lord Hokage wouldn't bother with a simple training exercise, would he? She thought about it some more and then shrugged. Then again, they're close. And he's the one who can find a way to motivate Naruto even more. This is the 4th training ground. Chunin and Genin both use the 4th training ground to improve their skills. The area is usually split up into sections for different types of training and purposes. Iruka led Naruto to a part of the training field that was open and not damaged as much. This is where other people went to meditate or improve their skills in less harmful ways. Okay, so kindly explain what's been bothering you. He then took out some kind of scroll and read it slowly for a while before nodding. She then put it down, picked out a tree, and ran up it with all his might. But Naruto focused too much chakra on his foot, and the bark broke off. He flew off the tree and splashed into the shallow lake. Darn it, the lake! Naruto and the tree caught Iruka's attention, and she looked back at Naruto in shock. He made it pretty far up there. Hey, Naruto, Iruka said as he cleared his throat and pushed Naruto closer. How long have you been doing this again? After shaking off the water, Naruto looked up for a moment and then back at Iruka. Since yesterday and the day before, that's 2 days. Iruka looked at Naruto for a while and then sighed. That's interesting. For how long did you do the leaf exercises? Naruto rubbed his head. Well, the scroll said to do it every few hours, but I only skimmed it the first week because I couldn't sit still. But 2 weeks? Why? I don't know what you told him, Lord Hokage, but it's working. Naruto is actually taking the time to improve his skills instead of slacking off. It's a miracle. Iruka turned around to face the tree as it came at her full force. After a while, he stopped to calm down. He then turned around and sat down on one of the nearby rocks. Okay, Naruto, do the leaf exercise now. Naruto looked shocked by that. Why? I need to check to see if you've been doing it right, Iruka said with his arms crossed. You have to really focus on the tree climbing exercise. You'll never get it done if you're not in the right frame of mind. Naruto huffed, but he sat down and started the exercise. He picked up a yellow leaf next to him and put it on his head. Iruka stood there and watched as Naruto closed his eyes. She was hoping to see something shift or jerk. He didn't say anything for 30 minutes, and Iruka just sat there in front of him, surprised but calm. Hey, Iruka, someone is coming over. What? Soon after, another academy teacher showed up next to Iruka. Hey, I was in search of you earlier, but you weren't at home. She looked at Naruto, then back at Kota, and then back at Naruto. Did Naruto see him coming? I don't know how many more surprises you can give me, Naruto. What is it? Iruka asked with a clear voice. When Kota turned to talk, he saw Naruto sitting next to him. Why are you having the kid with you? Naruto had his eyes open and was looking up at the man, most likely wondering why he had to break up their little session and maybe even getting a little annoyed. Can't concentrate with all the talking, guys. May I stop? She gave Kota a nod and then turned around. What's it? Heaved a sigh. I was going to ask if you could work my shift on Monday and Tuesday. I don't want to miss the baby's arrival if it comes early, as the doctor said. She waved her hand. Okay, no problem. Thanks, Iruka. You're the best, Kota said with a smile. I need to go now, but I'll see you later. Also, good luck with Naruto. After that, the man was gone. Naruto crossed his arms and looked up at the tree with a new attitude. He was about to try again when Iruka stopped him. Take a deep breath, Naruto. He scowled and asked, What now? Iruka looked back at where Kota had come from, then walked up to the blonde and got down on her knees. Did you feel him coming? He shrugged and asked, Yeah, why? The shock hit Iruka. His question was hard to put into words, so he asked, What did you feel? Like, what did you? How do I put this? Naruto smiled. I felt his. His chakra. Something like that. I need to focus though. Naruto, you're a sensor, Iruka said with a nod. That's really important. Not many people are like you. So, is it like a bloodline? Naruto asked with a smirk. He shook his head and looked up. Not all that now, he said. It's just very rare. Chakra can be felt by people. You, on the other hand, can sense it enough that it could be useful. It's helpful to be able to sense and target people on the battlefield. Naruto smiled big when he heard the news, and Iruka decided not to bother him anymore. Oh, I see. You needed to know. That's something else you can work on in your spare time. Now go climb the tree. Naruto turned around and ran up the tree, getting much higher than before. He lost his grip and slid down the bark, but compared to before, he didn't hit the ground hard like he usually did. Iruka will be proud of you and smile as she walks over to him and says, You'll be able to get it in just a week, if not a few days. Naruto nodded and then looked up the tree again, his eyes filled with determination. He'll finish it before Jiraiya comes back. That's his goal. Because of this, Naruto and Iruka trained after school to run up the tree. He was able to stand upside down on it after the 3rd day, so he finished the whole test. The boy then tried to take things a step further by learning how to walk on water, but that was way too hard for him. Before even thinking about that, He had to get used to running on flat ground. He skipped over to Ikaraku Ramen because Uruka had told him he would reward him for his hard work. What Uruka really wanted was this. He was really worried that Naruto's score wasn't going up and that it would have an effect on his future. It was clear that the boy needed help. His chakra was great, but he still needed to learn the basics. He now had a better understanding of how to use his chakra and was ahead of the rest of the class in this area. That's not what the test is for though. Naruto would be fine now if he were a genin, but he was skipping a lot as an academy student. Something was very wrong with his growth. He hoped that the choices he was making for the boy were the right ones. Naruto, on the other hand, is very happy. One step closer to becoming a real ninja in the village. This was also one step closer to his goal of proving to everyone in the village that he was good. I can't wait to show Sakura what I can do. She'll see I'm not a loser and be so impressed she won't know what hit her. That's good to know, she said. I'm excited to see how that goes, as they walked into the stand. She was surprised to see a man with long white hair already sitting at the booth. Naruto let out a gasp and jumped at the man, making the Toad Sage jump and fall off his seat. Luckily, he knew who was attacking him, so he quickly opened his eyes and grabbed the boy. "You're back, I love you," Naruto said as he wrapped his arms around his godfather. "Take it easy, Naruto. Do not choke me to death." Uruka stood there completely still and shocked. Somebody was wrestling with the legendary Jiraiya of the Sennin, and the two of them looked like they knew each other pretty well. "Wait," Uruka said, looking down at Jiraiya. He could tell right away that Jiraiya was a Sannin. "What do you know about Naruto, Lord Jiraiya?" His eyes got bigger, and he looked over his shoulder to see Uruka with her mouth open and her eyes wide. The lack of tact in Naruto made Jiraiya groan. "Got him at Naruto," he whispered, then looked back up at Uruka. "Yep, you see, it's a long story, but let's eat first." When their food was ready, they sat down at the stand to eat. Jiraiya did most of the talking while they talked about their situation. Uruka didn't eat or drink because she found what was being said so unbelievable. Even though Jiraiya didn't say who Naruto's parents were, he did say that he was close to them and should keep an eye on Naruto. "So Jiraiya was the one who gave you the scroll?" Uruka laughed as Naruto nodded. "I don't know what to say. I thought you were always surprising me, but this is really cool. Oh, you should tell him how your training went." Yes, Naruto told Jiraiya everything. To be honest, Jiraiya didn't know what to say. Not about the tree climbing, but about the senses. Naruto seems to have inherited Minato and Kushina's senses, so this was another thing that Jiraiya needed help with. "Wow, it looks like you've been busy this month. I guess I owe you the promise now that you've made progress. That's why I'll be your tutor tomorrow and we'll see what we can do." He smiled and looked down at the empty bowl of ramen. He then turned his attention to Jiraiya. The man sighed and put out another bowl for Naruto. The boy took a bite. The three continued to talk about anything that came up. Uruka told Jiraiya what was going on at the academy and in the village as a whole, while Naruto told Uruka about the kids he went to school with. Uruka joined in when it was necessary. Uruka then went home, and Jiraiya took Naruto to his apartment for the night. He cleaned up after Naruto for a while and then taught him how to do it himself. They still had a lot to say to the blonde, but they had time. The following day, the third training ground. The blonde sat in front of Jiraiya and watched as the old man went through his things to get something. Naruto was fascinated. He quickly pulled out a piece of paper. "This is where you can begin." "It's a blank sheet of paper," Naruto said as he grabbed it. Jiraiya said yes. "Go through it with chakra." Naruto focused and did it. Then, one side broke apart, another corner dried out and got wet, the third corner caught fire, and the last bit sparked, but it wasn't noticeable. Naruto dropped the paper in shock, and Jiraiya stood there dumbfounded. 4 chakra natures right away? Kid, that's more than your dad. Naruto was happy about that. "I have 4 types of chakras." When Jiraiya nodded, he had to grab the boy by the shoulders and tell him to calm down so he could listen. "Relax and pay attention. It looks like you have wind as your main since it was the most noticeable cause. Your second choice is water, and it looks like your other choices are fire and lightning. Naruto said yes, but then he stopped to think. Is that also very rare? Jiraiya agreed. Keep in mind that chakra natures can be learned even if you don't naturally have a knack for them. You could even not be good at any of them and still learn fireball jutsu. It would just take a lot longer than if you already had the connect. The more you tune into it, the easier it will be for your chakra network to handle the stress and change. You should work out a muscle until it's so strong that it's as easy as lifting a feather. He gave Naruto a nod and looked up at him. Good to know that my chakra is already tuned into and shaped by its affinities. That's pretty cool. If I want to be like Jiji-san, I only need to learn the earth release, right? It made Jiraiya happy to see that Naruto was getting it. Exactly. You're keeping up. Now, since this is your first jutsu, we'll start with your main affinity for wind. We'll work out the other affinities when you reach Genin level or something. I'm ready for anything, Naruto said with a nod. After 5 hours, it's clear that both sides took on more than they could handle. Even though Naruto is very smart, he's not the same as Minato. Naruto doesn't need stimulation to get good at Fuinjutsu, and Minato didn't need it to get good at ninjutsu. It didn't work the way they wanted it to, but the boy is tired and kicking up wind. He tried to understand a simple D-rank move that he was working on, but couldn't. Jiraiya helped Naruto leave the training ground by riding on his back and started to carry him home. I don't get it, this should be easy. Jiraiya shook his head and said, well, it shouldn't. Naruto, you are a student at the academy. Don't worry, even a Chunin would have a hard time on the first day. The boy shook his head against his shoulder. Sasuke is likewise. Jiraiya spoke up and said, Naruto, never compare yourself to anyone else, ever. Sasuke had resources early on and was expected to learn whatever he was learning. You weren't. Don't put yourself down. You've come a long way. That's not you. After that, Naruto was quiet, and Jiraiya could tell he felt bad about what he did. He sighed because he knew the next few weeks would be hard. But Naruto will just get better at this once he gets it down. He won't be able to be stopped after that. I'll drop you off and go get some candy or something for you because you deserve it. You're doing the work I asked you to do, and it shows. Little smile and nod from Naruto. After 2 months, the school. Needless to say, Jiraiya was right about Naruto. It took him a few days of trial and error to learn the wind pulse jutsu, and he learned the wind cyclone jutsu over the course of 2 weeks, without Jiraiya there for the first half of the week he was learning it. Naruto used his knowledge of Fuinjutsu, chakra control, and ninjutsu to shape it all together. The hard part was over, and he could finally see the results on the academy board. Naruto was slowly moving up from being the very last student to just being the class clown, which was much better than nothing. This was because he had time to work on his shuriken throwing skills, and Jiraiya gave him some taijutsu exercises to help him. Jiraiya told him to keep what he knows to himself so that no one would find out. This was for his own safety, since the old man didn't want anyone to get in my way while he was away. It was really annoying that he couldn't show off his skills the way he wanted to. But it's not useful, at least not in the way that what he's learned will help his grade. You shouldn't test ninjutsu because no one should know it, and his wall walking was cool, but it will be useful later, not now. So Naruto is only good at hand-to-hand combat, reading, and the first 3 academy jutsus. He used to be really bad at all of these things, but now he's just barely above Kiba. He scowled and said, talk about the devil. Akamaru was on Kiba's shoulder, and he looked over his shoulder and said, what the hell? How did both of us get the same score? Naruto was happy. Naruto poked fun at the boy and said, I guess we're tied for rock bottom, Kiba. Naruto's collar was grabbed by Kiba, who growled, don't compare me to a loser. Unlike you, I'm a man who will become Hokage someday. Naruto turned his head away. Nah, I'll be the next Hokage. You'll be lucky to be anything beyond being my personal pet dog. There was a roar from Kiba. "Why do you want it, short stack?" Iruka stepped in and hit them both in the back of the head with their final exams. "Take these and stop making a fuss." The boys moaned and looked at their final scores. Naruto let out a gasp. "I got a B+. Let's go. Who was the last person to die?" "Ha ha 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 ack." The class laughed at Uruk's antics after hitting Naruto, but Uruka's smile told it all. He's proud of how far Naruto has come so far. There is still a year to go though, so there is more work to be done. While the boys were messing around, Ino and Sakura sat at their desks, proud of the grades they had earned. Sasuke's smirk showed that he thought he was better than everyone else, as if a 98% should be impressive. She stared at her 100% with a straight face and flinched when the blonde made a noise. Her two annoying female classmates laughed at her reaction to the boy, and she moved her long hair out of her face. Both Choji and Shikamaru stood behind Naruto as he read his score. They looked impressed. Choji gave the boy a thumbs up and Shikamaru laughed. Shino just gave Naruto a nod when he was done and then went outside to talk to his parents. Soon, the whole class was let out and they rushed home to show their parents their grades. Some were excited to see how their parents reacted, while others weren't bothered. Those who failed their exams felt terrible. What about Naruto? He just picked up his things and left without stopping to say hello to his family. That's what they all thought, at least. He was no longer bothered by the looks, sneers, and whispers. Naruto told Kiba that he was going to be Hokage, but he doesn't believe that as much anymore because he doesn't know what it means to be Hokage. He just wanted attention, and at first he wanted it from these people. But now he only wants to impress a few people. That person was waiting for him at Ikaraku's where they were supposed to meet. He smiled when he saw that Jiraiya Ikaraku and his daughter Ayame were all waiting for him. He rushed over to show them, and they were all happy to see how much Naruto had grown. He couldn't help but wonder if his mom and dad were watching, if they were proud of how he was changing as he walked home from work. The day was over before he knew it. Land of Fire, Konohagakure Business District. March 3. The morning was lovely. It was finally spring, the trees were young and green again, and the flowers were starting to bloom. Parents were waking their kids up for school, while people who didn't have families were getting ready for the day. In General Kamiro, a famous store owner in Konoha who sells many kinds of tools and materials for all sorts of projects, thought today would be a good day. That is, until he went outside and saw that his shop had been smashed to pieces. He had a bad start to the day because of paint, eggs, and more paint. But the sheer size of the joke was shocking. It would take all day to clean up this mess. He would have to charge this to his business account and ask for a D rank. The man tried to calm down by taking a deep breath. After that, he lost it and started punching the air while yelling bad words and other things that didn't make sense. Soon, other people heard the noise and came to see what was going on. When his neighbors and rivals saw the mess, they laughed at him. "Oh no, Kamiro, today isn't your day, is it?" Kamiro barked at them and waved his finger at them. "Shut up, Kure. You hired someone to mess with my shop. I know that. You should tell your friend." Kure looked angry and put his hands up. "Hey, I didn't do that." The neighbor to Kamiro's right said, "All of this can be washed off." Kamiro was not amused. "Old man, just calm down before you have a heart attack." "Shut the F." Before he could finish swearing, the man started coughing. Kire and his neighbors laughed at the old man's expense, and someone was watching in the background with a smirk on their face the whole time. From afar, Naruto sat on the roof of a nearby building and watched. He didn't care about the damage. The man deserved it. He and the man had never gotten along, but one day, he insulted him too much. He was insulted when someone called his mother a whore. He didn't say it out loud, but he called him the son of a whore when they were arguing. Even though Naruto had more than enough money, the shopkeeper wouldn't sell to him. He tried to raise the price, but Naruto already had enough. Because the boy had so much money and wouldn't sell it, he called him a thief and a prankster when asked why. "That smell seems to follow me around all the time now." I haven't pranked anyone or anything in a year." He sighed and shrugged, and his feet moved back and forth on the edge. "I shouldn't have stayed to see how he reacted. Now I'll be late for the finals," he said. He shook his head. It was worth it to see the man flail his arms around like that. He got the last laugh, and that was all he wanted. Naruto stood up and stretched. He had been there since early in the morning to see how the man would react, and it was well worth it. It's time for him to take his written test, which he wasn't enthusiastic about. Naruto jumped from roof to roof and ran as fast as he could to get to the academy. He hoped he wasn't late, but he was pretty sure he would be. After all, he did take his time to watch the man have his little temper tantrum. Naruto smashed through the doors, making a loud noise that everyone heard. Everyone looked at her, and Iruka sighed. "How are you going to be late for your finals? You're lucky that we just began. Sit down." With a smile, Naruto walked to the back of the class to find a free seat. He looked around and saw one next to Shino. He walked over to him, sat down, and put his bag under his desk. The quiet boy was asked, "Hey there, Shino. What's up?" The boy looked back up to the front and said, "Naruto." Then Naruto gave his test, and they all began their tests. Naruto felt stupid as he stared at his sheet. He looked over his notes, but not enough. Because he was working on a different project for personal reasons, he didn't even notice. But that wasn't an excuse. You finish faster if you start early. You only need a good score, so pay attention to this. Take a deep breath, Naruto. Then he looks at the questions in front of him. Either now or never. At the end of the hour-long test, anyone who still had not turned in their paper had to do so. As soon as the timer went off, Naruto did. He was just outside of time. When Iruka put the sheets in order, Naruto couldn't help but feel nervous. Kiba roughed up his feelings by putting his arm around his shoulder and pulling him in. "What's wrong with your face, Uzumaki? Are you scared about being last in line?" Naruto scoffed at him and pushed him away. "Yeah, dog breath, keep dreaming." The Kiba barked. "Really? You're the one who's still behind me, class clown." Naruto smiled and shook his head. "That's only because I failed the first year MUT. Also, if I get a higher score, it will show that I'm still smarter than you, even though we're close." "Alright, Uzumaki, I'll kick your ass after the tests." "Fine, go for it. I'll mop the floor with you in Yusuka," Sakura moaned. "Will you two stop fighting already?" When Naruto turned around, he heard his crush and was startled. He saw Sakura get mad and Ino laugh. "Why are you two always fighting? You're both pretty stupid. I thought that would bring you two losers closer together," Ino said in a serious tone. Kiba was offended right away. "You witch, don't compare me to the knucklehead." Both Ino and Sakura rolled their eyes, and Sakura walked up to Naruto and stood close to him. Naruto was still and quiet. She seemed to glare at him, but he thought it was a joke. It wasn't. She told him, "You're in the way," in a rude voice. Naruto looked at it and said, "Huh?" Right away, Sakura shoved Naruto's face out of the way, flipping him over and throwing him down the stairs. Kiba laughed out loud as Sakura and Ino bombarded Sasuke with questions, compliments, and anything else they could think of to get his attention. The embarrassed and angry Naruto rolled to the bottom of the stairs and stayed there. "Damn, that succubus with pink hair, why does she have to be so mean?" he cried out loud to himself. After school was over, Naruto, Kiba, and Shino walked down to the place where they were going to have a barbecue. Well, Naruto paid for it. He had been given small amounts of his mother's inheritance. He's now as rich as a wealthy family with just the change he was given. Making him realize how rich his mother really was made him feel even better about being rich, in a technical sense. On the other hand, getting the rest of the money has become his only goal. The village is spending it, which is why this is the case. The village now owns it, and Hiruzen is the only reason why a big chunk of it has been set aside to pay for Naruto's costs. Lucky for him, he was able to buy his way into making friends. You can look at Kiba and Choji as examples. Most of all Choji. for his friendship, just offer to pay for and take him out to eat. Kiba and Shino are the only ones there today though. It was out of the blue that Kiba said, "You look silly chasing Sakura." Naruto was angry, so he scowled and kicked his chair. "Shut up. She'll see how cool I am one day, trust me. Plus, your crush on Hinata won't go away either. She's from a powerful clan after all." Kiba twitched his eyebrow and said, "I have a better chance with Hinata than you do with Sakura. You forget that I also belong to a clan. No clan jerks have no chance." He clenched his teeth. "You forget who's paying for your food, dog breath?" When Kiba tried to speak, Akamaru, who was sitting on Kiba's lap, barked at them, making the boy look down. Naruto laughed as he clenched his teeth. "Is your partner trying to make you understand? Wow, so he's the boss and you're the pet." He stood up and raised his fist. "Why are you so little?" Shino said in a calm voice, "Food is here." The boys sat down, took their plates, and ate while arguing with each other every so often. "I don't understand why you two get so upset when comparing yourselves. You're not rivals and don't consider yourselves such," Shino said quietly. "Doesn't it make sense?" Kibai had to say something. "Of course, we're not rivals." Naruto just shrugged and kept eating. "In every way, he's below me. In that way, Sasuke is the only one who deserves my attention." The fur on Naruto's brow moved. "I was going to say the same thing." Shino sighed as they began to talk again. He chose to just enjoy the food since Naruto had given it to them for free. After they were done, the three went their separate ways. Since there were only 4 of them in the afternoon, Naruto used the time to train. The following day, March 4th. The school. The same class from yesterday was back in the academy, and the results of their tests were out in the open for everyone to see. Naruto was shocked to see that he got a good score in the middle range. It wasn't perfect, but it was good enough to pass. Some people looked nervous because they failed, which means that the final practical exam is their only chance to pass. Iruka and Mizuki had set up a separate room to test the students in this area, but they thought the classroom would work for the first part. "Okay, class, you can get those results at the end of the day. Line up so we can start the practical exam. The first test will be the transformation jutsu," Iruka told them. Everyone did what was asked. She called Mizuki and said, "Okay, Sakura Haruno is first." The student with pink hair walked up to Sasuke and smiled at him. Then she focused on the technique and did it perfectly, changing into Iruka. Iruka and Mizuki both nodded their heads in agreement, and Iruka spoke first. "Great job! You got a perfect score." She turned around and cheered, "Yes, thanks, sir." After that, she naturally asked Sasuke if he saw her work, but the Uchiha only replied with his famous HN. Next was Sasuke, who did his without any problems. Then it was Naruto's turn. Naruto almost used his sexy jutsu to make Jiraiya look bad, but he knew better because he had only used it to trick her. "Alright, Naruto, we're ready." With a smirk, Naruto changed into the third Hokage. Mizuki narrowed his eyes as he looked for any mistake or flaw that would mean an automatic failure. Before he could say anything bad, Iruka had already told everyone about his success. "Naruto, good job. You passed." He changed back, bowed, and then went back to line. "Kazu, did you see that?" "Yes, you did." Sakura gave him a mean look for interrupting her private talk with Ino, and then turned away from him. Naruto's ego just dropped, and Kiba laughed at him. Iruka cleared his throat, then turned back to his student and said, "Okay, next is the clone jutsu. We'll be testing in a separate room. When it's your turn, we'll come grab you. For now, everyone except Sasuke is to stay." The kids did what they were told, and when the 2 Chunin left with Sasuke, the kids started talking, which is what kids do when they are not supervised. Before the conversation changed, Ino and Sakura were gushing about how cool Sasuke was and how he'd definitely pass. But when a fangirl asked Ino about how team placements worked, an argument broke out over who would be on Sasuke's team. Naruto chose to take a nap instead of listening in because he is still very nervous. He knows he will pass because Jiraiya taught him the clone jutsu and the shadow clone jutsu. But one mistake could ruin everything. He put his head on his hand and looked out the window. He didn't care about his classmates' fights, he just wanted to be alone. At the same time, Kiba was working up the nerve to ask Hinata out. He knew the right kind of guy for her, and even though he wasn't a smooth guy, he thought he looked good enough. As the heiress of one of Konoha's largest clans, Hinata wasn't the talkative type. In fact, she rarely spoke unless someone asked her to. That is, when she wasn't by herself in her small group. He held his breath and put Akamaru on the floor. Then he went over to Hinata's side and did his best not to sweat because he knew Hinata hates sweat more than anything else. He tapped her on the shoulder to get her attention. Hinata turned to look at him in the usual way with a calm, neutral face. "Hi there. How are things going, Hinata?" Kiba smiled and said, "Hello." She frowned and said, "Okay. You must be Inuzuka-san. Why are you here? Call me Kiba Hinata." "That sounds good, Kiba-san. Why are you here?" "Well, look at this. I was. Want to know if—" His words were cut off by nerves and worry. Hinata knew what was bothering the boy and scowled. "You know that's not allowed, Kiba-san," Hinata said. "I couldn't just go around courting whoever I wanted. I'm an heiress, and I have responsibilities and a reputation to uphold." She looked at the boy with pity. "I'm sorry, but my dad won't let me do that." The heiress sighed in sympathy, but it wasn't for her situation, it was for Kiba's. He hung his head in shame and defeat and turned around with an angry look on his face. Shikamaru and Choji felt bad in the back as they watched their friends' hopes dashed. Choji crossed his arms and said, "Well, she was nicer to him than Sakura is," referring to Naruto. "It could have been worse," Shikamaru said with a nod and a push on Kiba's passing form. "She could have turned you down right away." But Kiba barked. "Yes, she did." "I don't know," Shikamaru said with a shrug. "From what you can tell, she just said she can't date, not that she wouldn't if she could." Kiba looked at Choji with wide eyes. She praised him with a thumbs up. Kiba laughed and smiled as he picked up Akamaru and sat down next to Choji. "You know, you're right. She's like a princess trapped by her clan's ways, and I'm her gruff but handsome future savior." Shikamaru grimaced because he didn't want to listen to Choji talk about this for another 2 hours and felt bad that he might have made Hinata a permanent fan. Choji looked down at his chips and ate more of them. After an hour, someone pulled on Naruto's ear, which woke him up. He glared at the kid who did it. Once he knew why, the glare went away. To get his attention, Iruka waved his hand. "Let's go, Naruto. You're ready." "What the heck? Here we come," yelled the blonde as he stumbled out of his seat, making the whole class laugh. Of course, Kiba said something that made things worse. Naruto didn't pay attention to them and quickly left the room. "He's hopeless," Ino sighed at the scene. Sakura agreed, and then they went back to talking about Sasuke and where he would be placed on the team. He was taken to a classroom where Mizuki and Iruka were sitting at a desk. The chairs were set up because the room was used for something else. A bunch of genin ninja headbands were also set up in front of the two teachers. He smiled and crossed his arms. "Do your best." "Get ready, Naruto. This is it," Iruka said with a nod. They tested his different jutsus and how well he understood them over the course of 10 minutes. He did perfectly on all of the E-rank jutsus. It was down to the last one. "Okay, now, use the clone jutsu," Mizuki said. After nodding and making a few hand signs, there was a puff of smoke that filled the room and 20 Narutos stood there. Iruka was only slightly shocked because he knew a lot more about Naruto's power than Mizuki did. But even he didn't know about Naruto, who already knew how to use the shadow clone technique. Naruto laughed in shame, saying, "Surprise. How the hell did you get that jutsu?" Then Iruka clapped his hands to get their attention and laughed at Mizuki's trouble. "Naruto, good job, but I only asked for the clone jutsu." Naruto nodded, pushed the clones away, and used a weaker version of the jutsu. They passed him with flying colors. She told Naruto, very good, very good. But I have to ask, how did you get your hands on a forbidden jutsu? Naruto gave a blink. F not allowed? Uruka seemed a little nervous around Naruto, and Mizuki, who was leaning closer, looked very interested in what was going on. It was too late to hide it now, Naruto sighed. What was I thinking? Trying to show off like that, ugh. My guardian angel showed me how to use it. Mizuki looked like she didn't understand. What? You have a godfather? Soon after Naruto spoke, Uruka joined in because she knew he was talking about Jiraiya. Ah yes, that. Hokage-sama told me that he existed. Naruto, he shouldn't have taught you that jutsu though. I'm going to talk to Lord Hokage about it. Enjoy being genin for now. This is your headband. Before Mizuki could ask any questions, Naruto rushed out with the headband in his hands and a stiff bow. He will let Uruka handle that. His relationship with Jiraiya shouldn't be known by anyone. Still not yet. When he walked into the classroom, everyone turned around to see that he had passed the tests. Some people felt better because they didn't make a big deal out of it. It couldn't be that hard if the class clown and former last-place student could pass it, right? Finally, the day was over, and Naruto let his excitement show by saying that he would be the best ninja ever. Parents were clearly worried that he'd turn into a ninja, but he didn't care about them at all. Mizuki was a little let down that he couldn't use Naruto in his plans. It was fine though. Naruto is not the only person who could be a target. He saw some kids with sad parents around, so he went to the one who looked like they were under the most stress. It wasn't long. A boy named Haruta Satoshi was sitting there. Mizuki knows that his dad is a grumpy Chunin captain. He didn't like the man for many reasons. In fact, the man is the reason he switched branches in the first place. It would be good. At the same time, Haruta looked at his 24% test score with tears in his eyes out of fear. If father will definitely beat me, I'm not going to get away with it. How could I mess up so badly after going over this with my mom for hours, and to fail to make a clone? Haruta shook his head and paced back and forth while crying. There was a crash in his world. Not long after, Mizuki came over with a cute grin on his face. Alright, dude. She looked up at the man, and that was the end of it. After 2 hours. This is where Naruto lives. Naruto read the letter over and over, getting angry each time. But it was gone with the wind. Jiraiya couldn't make it. It was sad, but he couldn't do anything about it. With a sigh of disappointment, he ran his hand through his hair and threw the letter on the counter. I said, well, now my whole day is clear. Right now, all I want to do is sit down and watch my neighbors celebrate their son's new job. He barked at the thought. No one should talk to him. He is sick of seeing other families have fun while he stays home and mopes. It's irritating and sad. He chose to get some fresh air instead, so he got a pull-out chair and took it outside. He put it out on his small balcony and sat there to enjoy the breeze and the view of the sunset. It was a moment for him to be alone. Uruka's voice called out from under him not long after. Hi, Naruto. Naruto stood up and looked over the railing at Uruka. Do you want to get some ramen? The man waved. What a treat. As Naruto jumped off the railing, his eyes lit up. Uruka was startled, and Naruto almost called out. But he calmed down by telling himself that Naruto's traversal skills are much better than most students his age. With a smirk, Naruto slid down the wall and walked up to Uruka. Show the way. Uruka was happy to see that Naruto was eating better than before, while she and Naruto looked forward to their meal. It's true that he's still messy, but not nearly as messy as he used to be. I see you learned how to behave at the table. I spoke before Naruto could say anything. He can thank me for that. He says he wants to take his future girlfriend on a date here, but I can't let him because of the way he eats. He still has a long way to go. Hey, I'm eating cleaner, Naruto snapped back as he glared at her with a full mouth. I smiled. Not clean enough. Slow down or you'll choke. Tuchai laughed as he came around the corner and put Uruka's special beef bowl in front of him. Go easy on the kid, he's just having fun. He was older and said it. Oh, and Aruka, I added that seasoning you love so much. It was the last bit I had, so enjoy it. He licked his lips and said, thanks. Thanks for that. Aruka thanked the man and dug into her bowl. I smiled and turned to Naruto. Okay, so how does it feel to be a real ninja? Naruto looked at her with a real smile and said, it feels great, believe it. One more step toward becoming a chunin. Aruka had to take a deep breath because he was about to choke on his ramen. Naruto, don't be so quick. You're still new as a genin. He shook his head and said, no way. I will run for the job as soon as I get the chance. The sooner I become chunin, the sooner I will find out who my father is. Well, you'll need to pass the secret finale test from your Jonin sensei, Haruka said with a sigh. Naruto being the same rank as him would make things interesting. The man shook his head. Naruto would be fine. He already knew a lot, and probably even more. Just by looking at the boy, he could tell that he was hiding his intelligence behind a mask of happiness. It's not a strong mask, but that's why it works. He's smart, and never underestimate him. Haruka and Naruto went their separate ways after dinner. Since there was no school for the rest of the week, Naruto went to the training ground to try out his newest jutsu. The jutsu in question is called Barrier Armament, and it's meant to be a shield that can protect against weak ninjutsu attacks and other similar attacks. However, it didn't work, and he has to redraw the seal on his forearm every time it fails, which is annoying. This is a variation of his barrier art, personalized barrier jutsu, which is a similar jutsu that makes it hard to move or walk while it's being used. It completely surrounds the person who is using it. I think it's cool to use Fuinjutsu to make barriers, but only if they last. Let's see which of my drafts can make this work. The boy used the Shadow Clone Jutsu, and the clone was already on the same page as Naruto. It gave Naruto some space and went over hand signs. Alright, me get ready. When the real Naruto nodded, he held out his arm like he was holding a Trojan shield. As his clone made hand signs, a barrier came to life. Toad gun style in water. The boy's shield was hit by a blast of water that was strong enough to knock him back and break it. When Naruto looked at the tattoo on his arm, he saw that it had faded a lot. The chakra in it had been used to keep the barrier strong. That's interesting, but not the results I want. He wiped off the ink, went over to the huge scroll he had set down from afar, and copied the method from a different draft. He went back to the clone and tried again, this time using his jutsu to see what would happen. Toad bullet style in water. He got ready, but to his shock, the shield disappeared before the jutsu could reach him. So, the withering shield only softened the blow, and his own jutsu hit him hard enough to knock him out and scatter across the field. Gah! Damn it, that hurts! Naruto moaned as he rolled around, defeated. His copy laughed out loud and rolled over on his back. Man, you look stupid. You're wet like a cat that was pushed into the bath. Who are you laughing at, you stupid? Naruto growled as he stood up and stomped toward the clone. The clone was proud. It's tough to insult someone as pretty as me, eh? Poof! Naruto punched the clone and made a new one to change its personality. Okay, this one works with time. Trash. He took the seal off and went back to his scroll. After 2 hours. After a few hours of trying different things, the first one was still the only one that would work. Failure of mission. Because of this, Naruto is lying on the ground and staring up at the stars mad. This is so stupid. Why is it so hard to combine Fuinjutsu and Barrier Ninjutsu? They should work together. Mom, how did you do this? Ugh. He jumped up when he felt someone coming, but it wasn't a person he knew. It was a child. He was running fast with a big scroll on his back. He looked very scared. Naruto squinted to see that it was a classmate. He almost didn't do anything because he felt like something bad was about to happen. Well, the cat learned its lesson, but this cat still has 7 lives left. Let's find out what's going on. Naruto chose to follow the boy, and after a short time, he realized he had a good reason to be interested. With all his might, the boy was frantically reading a huge scroll in order to pass his secret test quickly. When Naruto landed in front of him, the boy jumped and said, "Gah, I haven't done anything. Wait, who is Naruto?" Naruto turned his head that way. "Know you?" "It's Haruto," the boy scowled. "You're in the same class." There was a snap from Naruto. "Ah, of course, that kid you." "You mean the dead last?" Haruto asked with anger. "Yes, that's me." "Thanks," Naruto asked in an irritated tone. "What does that mean?" "Since you decided all of a sudden to do well in school, I've been getting bad grades, and my dad has decided to take me away from him." "Could I even keep a D in class? What chance do I have on the field?" replied a grumpy Haruto. That comment didn't make Naruto happy. "Yeah, that has nothing to do with me. You're still on the ground. Stand up. Why are you out so late, and what's with that big scroll?" The boy made a face. "I have the same question for you." And Naruto scowled at them. When he turned around, he saw that he had his own big scroll on his back and looked a little shy. "Well, I asked first. Tell everyone. I know you're up to no good." The boy got up, mad at being blamed. "No, I'm not. You are ruining a secret test I'm in the middle of." He crossed his arms and asked, "What are you talking about? The test is not a secret." Haruto turned his head away. "Yes, there is. Mizuki told me all about it." He shook his head and made a face. "Mizuki wouldn't have made you do this. Surely someone in your class pulled a joke on you." Haruto turned his head away. "For sure it was Mizuki. He even helped me get into the Hokage Tower to get this stuff." That made Naruto's eyes widen. "Oh my god, this kid is so stupid." Naruto was about to say something, but he stopped when he felt Mizuki coming and calmed down. "Well, you're in trouble no matter what. I don't want to deal with this nonsense, so." Shurikens came out of the bushes before he could finish. Both Naruto and Haruto had to move, but Haruto was unlucky and took too long. Naruto just barely was able to avoid getting hit. He rolled and pulled out some of his own kunai to protect himself. He scowled as he looked at the person who was attacking. "What is Mizuki?" The Chunin with silver hair frowned and said, "What the hell? I was going to kill both of them." He smirked at the other student and said, "Never mind. I was mostly going for that one anyway." Mizuki was very happy about this. Naruto followed Mizuki's gaze and felt his heart drop. He was slouched over and shaking as he looked at his own blood. Naruto didn't know what to say, so he rushed over to Haruto as Mizuki walked up to the forbidden scroll, picked it up, and smiled. "Take a deep breath, Haruto. Do not move. I'll find someone." Naruto pulled Haruto into his lap. The boy tried to talk, but all that came out of his mouth was blood, which scared Naruto. Many shuriken have hit the boy in the chest, and one has gone so close to his neck that it looks like it cut him open. It was clear that he was choking on his own blood because his hands were shaking. At that point, Naruto realized how bad things were and that the boy couldn't be saved. When Naruto tried to put pressure on Haruto's neck, his eyes rolled up. Then he died, and Naruto's eyes grew bigger as he saw his body fall apart in the blonde's arms. He didn't know what to do, and it was the first time he felt real fear. "Oh no. Oh my god," Naruto gasped and stumbled back as he stood up. Like this was too much for him. Mizuki just laughed and rolled his eyes at the scene. "You greenhorn genin are too emotional. You wouldn't have lasted a day on the field, demon. So long now." When Naruto turned around, he saw a big shuriken coming at him. He dodged it and threw his own at Mizuki, who looked a little startled. What the hell? How did he know that was going to happen? Naruto tried very hard to calm down and think as tears ran down his cheek. He was lost, though. He has never been through anything like this before. He saw a classmate die just now. He doesn't even know how to do jutsu. He growled and moved forward when Iruka landed behind him. "Haruto, Mizuki, did you find him?" Naruto was shocked, and his mind was a mess of thoughts. Iruka wanted to rush to his student, but Mizuki stopped him. "Hold it, Iruka." Naruto was next to the boy in line. He killed him in cold blood for telling on him. Be careful. A look from Iruka to Mizuki made Naruto yell. Iruka, Mizuki is not telling the truth. That was Mizuki's mean look at Naruto, but Iruka kept his eyes on the other teacher. Iruka was smart, but he also wanted to trust Mizuki because they were friends, but Naruto's face told him not to relax as soon as he saw it. After seeing the scroll in Mizuki's hand, Iruka frowned and said, "We'll question Naruto then." "Please give me the scroll," Iruka insisted, and Naruto gave her a betrayed look. But he was only doing this to see if what Naruto said was true. He thought Mizuki had something to do with it, but he needed to be sure. He narrowed his eyes and said, "Iruka, I found it first." Iruka narrowed his eyes at his longtime co-worker. Suddenly, both of their hands blurred into action, and they swung their kunai at each other. Mizuki was on his back foot and used his free arm to block Iruka's sudden flurry of cuts. Soon, Mizuki set off a smoke bomb to get some space and put the scroll on his back. The man yelled, "I'm getting rid of 2 problems tonight." Iruka turned pale when she saw the hand signs. "Take Haruta by the hand and get down, Naruto." Naruto knew what to do right away, so he grabbed his dead classmate and hid behind a tree. I yelled, "Fire style, flame bullet jutsu." The man in front of him lit up the path in flames to give himself room to move. When Iruka jumped into the trees to try to flank him, Mizuki stopped the jutsu by making sure the scroll was properly held in place and threw a demon wind shuriken at Iruka. The huge shuriken curled in the air, forcing Iruka to flip his body around in midair to avoid it. Iruka landed badly because of this, but Mizuki knew this would happen and locked blades with Iruka as soon as the chance came up, grinning from ear to ear. "It's because you've been sitting at a desk all day that you're slow." Mizuki turned their fight around and hit Iruka in the stomach with a strong kick. Iruka fell back and dove backward to avoid the heel kick that came next, but Mizuki flipped her away. "Why you, Mizuki? Why would you do that?" Iruka got a dirty look from Mizuki. "Because I hate this village. I've been stuck in the same spot for years, unable to move forward, all because of that jerk's father. I had to work as an academy teacher because he gave me bad instructions." She asked with a glare, "Is that why you had the boy killed? Because of his dad?" Mizuki just shrugged. "No, I didn't want the Kyuubi kid to steal the scroll from me. But things worked out anyway. The demon kid is here too, so I'll offer his body as a follow-up sacrifice to Lord Orochimaru." "Orochimaru?" they both thought at the same time. Iruka's eyes went wide with shock, and Naruto's did the same from behind cover. "Don't talk anymore," Mizuki snapped his neck. "Let's get him done quickly." "I need to be somewhere," Iruka growled, and Naruto could still hear fighting from where he was sitting. When the truth of his job hit him hard, all he could do was stare at the dead classmate. I thought, what have I done? The kid shut his eyes and shook his head. I should have pushed him out of the way. I needed to move faster. I needed to move faster. Naruto woke up from his sad state when Iruka let out a painful scream. He looked around the tree and saw that Iruka was leaning against a tree. He was hurt, and his arm looked like it was broken, with a nasty cut going down it. When Iruka saw the Chunin smile, she spit out some blood and glared at it. "Mizuki will pay you. You'll be caught and killed for this." She shook his head. "The trail I left fooled most of the village," he said. "They're in the wrong place looking for the brat. This has been in the works for years, Iruka. Many years. Still, it's a shame. I liked you a lot. I would have brought you along if you had stayed the same. Goodbye, demon lover." It was never over for Iruka, even though he clenched his teeth and waited. Instead, he saw Naruto kick Mizuki in the side, sending the Chunin tumbling and skidding away. Naruto then stood in front of Mizuki with a scared but determined look on his face. When Mizuki felt a small amount of blood leak from his headband and run down his temple, he smiled less. He tapped it and glared at it. Then he looked up at Naruto and sent killing intent at the boy, which stopped him in his tracks. "That jerk will get me killed." "Naruto, strengthen your mind," Iruka said with a steely look on his face as she put her hand on Naruto's shoulder. Fear is one of the worst things that has ever killed people. While you are at your strongest right now, don't let it affect you. Naruto looked uncomfortable around Iruka, but Iruka was sure of himself. As the ninjas of the Hidden Leaf will take him down, you're not alone. Iruka's words hit Naruto, and he nodded and stepped forward. Mizuki laughed. It doesn't matter to me if I kill you one by one or all at once. Ninetales, show me what you can do. Naruto glared and took a stand. The boy yelled, "Stop calling me names, jerk, Shadow Clone Jutsu," and 50 copies of Naruto showed up. He smiled at Mizuki. He was scared when he first learned that Naruto had this jutsu, but he was still a spoiled brat who had just graduated from the academy. About 40 copies of Mizuki charged her while Naruto listened to Urakak. Let me get close to Mizuki and make a way for me to do it. I just need to get close enough to cut his throat with this. Naruto understood as Iruka showed him the hidden kunai, and his view of Iruka changed, though not for the better. It was a necessary reminder that the man had killed before. He's being trained to be a killer. This is what he signed up for, not the good parts to protect his village from all enemies inside and outside. That's the oath he took when he put on the headband. Iruka saw Naruto's resolve harden and gave him a nod. All right then. Allow us to show Mizuki why she should stay away from Konoha. That smile quickly disappeared from Naruto's face when Mizuki killed all the clones nearby and ran straight for them, making hand signs as he went. Fire type, flame bullet. Mizuki fired a stream of fire at the clones of Naruto and Iruka. Naruto made his own hand signs, which surprised both of the Chunin who were there. Water style, toad gun. A strong stream of water shot through the flames and hit Mizuki in the chest so hard that he fell into a tree. The man's Chunin vest slightly tore, and he let out a shocked yell. It felt like someone kneeled him from behind with the scroll on his back. What is ninjutsu? How can someone who just graduated from college change nature? Iruka was shocked at first, but he didn't stay shocked for long. He kept following the clones and watched them do another move. One of them yelled, "Wind style, wind cyclone." Someone else yelled, "Water style, water stream." The two jutsus came together to make a vortex of water and wind that sped toward Mizuki, who was already on the ground. He had to get back up and run up the tree because of this. But as soon as the jutsu hit the tree, the water and wind vortex was strong enough to pull him out of the tree, throw him into the air, and hit the ground. Work together jutsu. Who the hell is this jerk? Mizuki hit the ground hard, and the scroll flew out of his hands and landed in front of Naruto, who was angry at the man. Iruka quickly threw smoke bombs, which quickly filled the area with smoke. He had 2 kunai ready and could see the 10 remaining clones moving quickly like shadows. One came out of the smoke, and with a quick jab of his kunai, he easily killed it. He was let down that it wasn't the real thing. 2 more came up behind him, but he turned and cut both of them before they could get to him. Predictable. 2 more came, and the same thing happened. Mizuki winced in pain though. He's sure he broke something in his back, but the adrenaline is still going strong, and he has a drug ready to use to keep it going. He just needs some time and space from this monster that looks like a person. He became very excited when he thought he heard the sound of a jutsu about to be used. He threw one of his kunai at the source and killed another clone. 3 more came in at the same time, but he easily dodged, weaved, and killed them all before turning around and catching the lost clone. He smiled when he saw that it was really Naruto. Alright, stupid little jerk. Finally, Uzumaki, show who you are. You should have run with that little body over there. You might have hacked if you had done that. He saw Iruka right behind him as a kunai went through the man's throat, which made his eyes widen. Mizuki, you were too proud to rule me out. Your pride has cost you. When Mizuki let go of Naruto, the boy ran off, but the silver-haired Jonin grabbed him by the throat and yelled obscenities and insults. All that came out was blood as he fell to his knees and coughed up the red liquid before finally falling onto his stomach. Iruka looked down at his friend. Iruka felt sad as she thought, I never saw him as an enemy. Naruto stood up and grabbed his throat in pain. Anger came over him. Yeah, that's poetic justice for you, you evil one. You killed a child who wasn't guilty, someone who planned to do something with their life. You! He yelled and cried angry tears down his cheeks, but he calmed down when Iruka put her hand on his shoulder to comfort him. Naruto, Halura's death is sad and regrettable, but I promise it wasn't in vain. We'll let the Hokage know about this. Say, Iruka, there will be people there. After a minute, masked shinobi surrounded them. Iruka quickly nodded and stepped up her defense. Iruka looked around and calmed down. Anbu. Yugao went straight to Haruta's body to see if there was a pulse. At the same time, Crow landed in front of Iruka and Naruto. The blonde jumped a little because of the sudden movement, but Iruka kept a steady hand on his student. When Iruka tried to explain, Inu just shook his head and held up his hand. There was no need. The Hokage knew what was going on, which is why we're here. But it looks like it's too late. Finally, Iruka gave up because he was too tired to fight anymore. Just then, Naruto and Inu caught him and said, "Leave him to me, Uzumaki-san." Naruto said yes and let the man take him. Then he ran over to where Yugao and another Anbu member were looking at Haruta's body. Is it possible to save him? Yugao just stood there and stared at Mizuki's dead body for a moment before saying, "He's gone." The following day, hospital in Konoha. He saw the Hokage waiting for him outside as he left Iruka's room. "This is Naruto. Let's talk." He turned his head and frowned. "I'm fine. I'm done with it," I said. "No, you're not," Hiruzen said, shaking his head. He then followed Naruto. "From the way you look, I can tell. You should have slept." The Hokage stood over Naruto as he scowled and went to sit down in the hall. "Take a deep breath. What happened wasn't your fault." He gave him a mean look, but it didn't work. "I was right there. I might have been able to push him out of the way and... You killed yourself. Mizuki was trying to kill you, and you'd never been fought someone who was trying to kill you before." I remember the fear in his classmates' eyes and his desperate need to live. Naruto turned away and clenched his teeth. He was just like me. Mizuki picked on him because he did badly on his test. It might have been me. Think about if it were me. Like him, I would have been killed. Hiruzen let out a sigh. He didn't have to comfort a child who had just been thrown into something so violent so quickly because he had already done that for Orochimaru and Tsunade. He gave that a frown. Those two on his team were the most sensitive and were hurt the most by loss and seeing it happen. Unlike with Orochimaru, he didn't want to let Naruto down and change the way he saw life. He also didn't want to be heartless and do the bare minimum with Tsunade, which is what he thought he did. Naruto, listen up. This is the world of Shinobi, and unfortunately, you will see a lot of injustice. Instead of being sad about the death of one person, use this as a chance to make sure that the strong never hurt the weak again. That's what being a Kage is all about, protecting your family. You didn't fail last night, I did. Naruto looked at Hiruzen. The old man got down on his knees and put his hand on the boy's head. These are the times when we shinobi learn how hard it is to be killers and have to decide who we are in this cruel world, he said. When you think about what's coming up, this work seems easy. Be ready. Now is the time to find your ninja way. Naruto smiled and bowed his head. Another thing, am I the Cheshire Cat? Of course. Mizuki's comments. Damn that fiend, Hiruzen said with wide eyes and a tilted head. Hiruzen shook his head and said, no. For now, let's talk about that part alone. But trust me, you are not the Ninetales. Naruto made a face. It would make me question a lot of what I thought I knew. Am I the Ninetales child? Was my mom. Let's talk about that in my office. It has to do with your mom, but not in the way you think. Naruto smiled and got up. Well, now is the best time, right? Let's go, Hiruzen said with a nod. Office of the Hokage. Hiruzen canceled everything for the morning so he could deal with the problem properly. He sat down at his desk and Naruto stood in front of him. It took an hour to explain everything, including what Jinchuriki were, how his mother was one, and how the fourth Hokage trapped the beast inside him to stop the Ninetales. He didn't say anything at all. He didn't have any questions like when he was younger and wanted to know who his parents were. Nothing but silence. At the end, Naruto nodded to show that he got it. "Where's the seal?" Hiruzen got up and asked, "May I?" By lifting Naruto's shirt and making a sign with one hand, Hiruzen showed the ink on Naruto's stomach. Why genjutsu? Or ink that makes things look real? Whatever the case may be, it looks like I don't know a lot more about myself than I thought. Hiruzen observed the boy's angry look and let out a sigh. "Let me say I'm sorry, Naruto. Does anyone else know?" Hiruzen blinked and made a face. "Most of the adults know, and so do our soldiers." Naruto nodded and began to pace, walk around the room, and run his hands through his hair. This was a clear sign that he was under a lot of stress because he was trying not to lose his cool with the person who had done so much for him. Naruto let out all of his anger, and Hiruzen waited for him to lose it. But before the boy spoke, there was only panic. Why do they know? Why? Doesn't this need to be a secret? Hiruzen gave a nod. It is. Then what? What do they know? Is this why everyone hates me so much? Why do parents still take their kids away from me? Why can't I just pay normal prices for food? Why do people not only ignore me everywhere I go, but they hate me? Naruto screamed in anger as Hiruzen looked down. He then kicked the chair into the wall. I thought I was rude and weird, but it's worse. Hi, Naruto, don't worry. Naruto spun on top of him. How? How do I do that? My life has been over since the day I was born. No, Hiruzen shook his head. I would have left you in the orphanage if that were true. Naruto, you have always been meant to be great. Do not let anyone. Fuck fame. What about a normal life? That's not possible for me. If I ever want to retire, this thing has to be ripped off of me. I'm a badass. Hiruzen put his hand on his forehead as he realized how stupid it was to do this without Jiraiya. Naruto's knowledge of Fuinjutsu didn't help either. He knows he's not a monster, but knows what it means to be Jinchuriki. I want it out of me. That made Hiruzen's eyes get bigger. I can't just take it off. What the heck? Hiruzen put out his hands to make the person feel better. Naruto, it would kill you. The blonde raised his hands in the air and let out a stream of angry tears. Gee, great. We were going to have a party this week. I'm turning into a genin. That's a scary story. I saw someone die and learned for the second time that my life was a lie. Gigi, am I being too dramatic? Am I? I think I sound like a spoiled brat now. Do you agree? Do you agree? The blonde broke down when Hiruzen hugged Naruto. After another hour, Naruto was calm and ready to listen. His mind was also calm. How did they find out? He thought about how to help the boy get over these terrible events as he sat in his chair with his arms crossed. A counselor told everyone about it. Name? Hiruzen wanted to tell him no because he didn't want him to know about Danzo, but it was probably best that he did. Danzo Shimura. Stay away from him at all costs. Hiruzen was in the mood to quilt, so Naruto nodded and tried to think of another question to ask, but he ran out of ideas. I'm leaving now. Hiruzen raised an eyebrow and said, Of course you can come talk to me whenever you want. Naruto gave a nod and left the room. He went home on foot. People were avoiding him like the plague this time, and he knew why. For the first time ever, he felt hate toward these people. They were just regular people, so he knew he shouldn't do it. He'd be on guard all the time if there was a time bomb in the village that was set off by the same thing that killed him years ago. The boy laughed to himself when he thought about how his presence could ruin someone's day. He sat down to clear his mind when he got home. He learned how important it is to meditate from the leaf training. He would never do it for fun, but it comes in handy times like these. He is better able to sense what is going on around him when he is in this state of mind. It even improves his senses when he is not meditating, like keeping your brain in shape. He could see everything going on around him for several miles now that he had his eyes closed. But as he moves farther away, it gets fainter. He opened his eyes and saw that the sun was much higher than it had been. He looked at his headband. He is still determined to become a ninja, even though things have changed.
So this was it for today. I will continue the story in next part. Till then, we weeb offline.